I'm a lifestyle, I'm the new thing with a bright smile. Catch me when I'm out in public, always show them love, and I know they love it. Give you a reason to love me this season. I'm taking my chances, I hope it enhances my...
All right, welcome to Romera Records Podcast. Today we have on...
Kimberly Brown.
And
Dwayne Chaffen.
Awesome. How's it going, guys?
We're good.
Great. No complaints, man.
Cool. So this is going to be pretty interesting, I guess, because Kimberly said she's running off of a couple hours of sleep.
Like I'm on fumes right now.
So what was that about?
So I'm an ER doctor, and I just signed a new contract where I start covering some other hospitals like in the greater Memphis area. So I was all the way in Carroll County, Tennessee, and I just did like a 12-hour shift there. So I had to drive 2 hours there and then drive 2 hours back here.
Oh, man.
And it was pretty busy towards the beginning of my shift, but then it slowed down a little bit. But then I got a phone call. I actually took a phone call at like 5 o'clock this morning, and then...
Shouldn't have took it.
No, I shouldn't take it. I was like, oh, you can call me right now, or you can call me on Sunday, and she chose right now. But yeah, it was fine. We had to catch up on some stuff, so it was good.
Cool. So what'd you have to do?
As far as work?
Yeah.
So basically just covering whoever comes into the emergency department. So, I mean, from other podcast episodes, it sounds like you had like a thumb injury, and so you went to St. Francis?
Yeah, as you can see.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just on the way here. I was listening to the episode of your hand surgeon from Campbell Clinic. But like you walked into an ER, you needed some assistance. So I am the doctor that you originally see when you come into the hospital.
Oh, okay.
So I take care of everything, whether it be hand injuries, whether it be heart attacks, strokes, traumas, you name it. I'm a jack of all trades, or Jill of all trades. I'll say it. I'm a Jill of all trades.
So how did you, I guess, get into that? What was the beginning of that?
Very long story short, I've always wanted to be a doctor. I stumbled upon emergency medicine a little bit later in life. So went to college, Fisk University in Nashville. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but just the MCAT was just a lot for me. So didn't do too hot. The MCAT is the Medical College Acceptance Test. And so in order to get into med school, you have to take this test and get a certain score. And that helps to, see how competitive you are against other applicants. So basically, the higher the score, the better. And I never scored very high on it. It was actually one of the downsides. I always had the grades and stuff like that, but just never the MCAT score. So I ended up getting a master's degree in public health first after I graduated from college, and that was from the University of Florida. But the summer right before I finished my master's degree, I ended up going to Ecuador. And I spent some time in accident and casualty, which is basically Ecuador's emergency department or emergency medicine system. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? Like, it was super fun. Like, all kinds of people were coming in the door. It was men, women, all these things. I was like, this is really cool, because I never knew what was going to happen next. And so I remember going to an internet cafe and just like Googling, what is accident and casualty in the United States? And I found emergency medicine. I'm like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. I wanted to be an OBGYN for a long time. I thought about being a cardiovascular surgeon. My mom wanted me to be an orthopedic surgeon or a cardiologist, but I found emergency medicine was like the perfect blend of everything. So, and I don't have to be on call. I have my own time. I work shifts. It's really flexible. So that's what I do.
So, I'm sorry, you might already explain this, but so like Dr. Weller, he said he works for like the Campbell Clinic. So Correct. He just kind of like goes wherever. Is that kind of like what you're doing? Or?
Yes and no. So emergency medicine, at least in this region, is a little bit different. So hospitals don't directly hire their emergency doctors here in the Memphis area. They contract with other companies to do so. And so I am a contractor for Team Health, which covers the Baptist hospitals in this region. So I'm basically, covering maybe DeSoto, maybe Crittenden, Huntingdon, some places in Union County, Mississippi, Union City, Tennessee. I'm all over the place. But I trained and did residency here. So I'll say this, if you want to become a doctor, you have to go to medical school, but after you complete medical school, you have to do a residency, and that's when you specialize in something. So whether you want to be a pediatrician, if you want to be an ER doctor, if you want to be a surgeon, then you have to do that specific residency. So I did residency here, and I trained in the Methodist system. I trained at Le Bonheur, and I also did some training at Regional 1.
Okay. So how was Ecuador? I've actually been to Ecuador. I went to
It was lit.
Quito.
Yeah, that's where I was.
You're in Quito?
So this was a long time ago. So this was like 2009. That was my first time ever being out of the country. I had gotten my passport specifically just for that, but that was really, really fun. I just got overwhelmed probably about a week and a half in because my Spanish is not that great. And you really got to know Spanish pretty well to live in Ecuador. But I learned, and that was part of the experience, is I also learned some medical Spanish, and I also learned more about their public health system and how they take care of patients there. So I rotated in family medicine, OB, pediatrics, things like that. So it was a fun experience.
Latin and Spanish are kind of similar, right?
They're very similar because English, Spanish, and French are all Latin-based for some things. So it was easy for me to pick up some things. I took a little
medical
bit of,
terms.
Yeah, and medical terms too. But I took some French in high school and some Spanish like before that. So I kind of could piece some stuff together and remember it. But it's just kind of hard like having like a back and forth conversation with somebody. I'm just not that good at my Spanish just yet. So I can say basic things.
But were the people you working with, were they all like Americans or is it a lot of just Ecuadorians? So
the doctors were all Ecuadorian, but the students were either from Canada or from the United States.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Yeah, met a lot of cool people, so it was dope.
How long were you there?
I was there for a month.
For just a month? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Well, that's not that bad.
No, it wasn't bad.
Where were you living?
I lived with a homestay family, so it was an older woman, and she had some older daughters. I don't remember what she did, but she basically was retired, and she had like an extra room in the back of her house that she used to just have like, study abroad students just come stay with her. So it was dope. I did the same program again, just in a different place when I was in medical school. I actually went to South Africa. I went to Durban for a month doing kind of similar thing, but just focusing more on HIV/AIDS just because I wanted to travel a little bit again while I was studying.
So AIDS is pretty bad in like the whole continent of Africa, isn't it?
Yes, but more specifically, it's pretty bad in South Africa. And that's more so because of, I think, apartheid and some other factors there that I'm just not remembering because it's been a while since I've been there as well. Yeah. But I spent some time in the HIV clinics there. I spent some time in the OBGYN ward, so in the labor and delivery wards, delivering babies there. I did get lots of chance to like travel around, so I did go to Cape Town a little bit and hang out, which I absolutely highly recommend to everybody to go to Cape Town. Of course, saw some townships which were very humbling, especially coming from America and being Black and looking at how Black people are living in other parts of the world. It's literally just abject poverty in some of the townships there. But then if you just drive like 20 minutes down the road, it can be just like completely modern, and you think you'd be in America or Canada or somewhere in Europe or something like that.
Oh, wow.
It's a very humbling place to go. So
that's pretty cool. Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Africa just to see like the different. It seems like a very diverse continent. Mm-hmm. Even though like everybody usually kind of just like, people make that mistake of calling Africa a country.
Just Africa, yeah.
It's
like a monolith.
There's so many different, countries there that have different lifestyles. So I think it'd be awesome just to go to see the different places, even up to like the Middle East areas where close to like Egypt, and I think it'd be awesome just to travel everywhere.
That is definitely on my bucket list. I have got to go to Egypt, like, before I die. I've got to see the pyramids and everything. I really, really want to do that.
I've heard that it can be, I think it's Egypt, is like kind of dangerous. And then also I've heard it's like perfectly fine. Like I've heard both sides.
I've heard both of it as well. I think it's probably because they're just in and out of so many wars, maybe. I don't want to say things that are not true, but that's what my thought is of the things that I've heard. But
I've heard that about America, though, from other people.
Right. Some people say, you going to Memphis?
Yeah,
it's a little dangerous there. I'm like, well, I'm from Milwaukee. It's dangerous there, too.
They call it what? Kilwaukee?
Yeah, Kilwaukee.
Wow.
Kilwaukee, yes. Wow. But you're from Memphis, so,
A native Memphian.
Yeah.
Well, Memphis has it's got its good spots and it's got its bad spots. I mean, and then plus, like, whatever you consider Memphis. Like, I think I was talking to somebody and they were like, yeah, Cordova got annexed into Memphis. And I was like, all right, whatever. Because I just moved here in April of last year, so I don't really know what is Memphis as far as, because I'm actually from a really small town, so I'm not used to, I guess, big cities just like claiming everything around them.
Right.
So
you're from Mississippi, right?
No, Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What part of Alabama are you from?
Northeast Alabama. Have you ever heard of Birmingham?
Nah, never heard
Okay,
of
so
it.
Birmingham is.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, really?
Like, nah, never heard of Birmingham. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I know Birmingham.
Well, some people they don't know any cities
Really?
in Alabama. Yeah.
Because there's Birmingham, there's Montgomery, there's Selma, there's Huntsville.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, Birmingham has Papados.
They do. And we do not have Papados here.
We don't.
Which is a great disgrace to the city of Memphis. Papados, if you're listening, please come to Memphis. We'd love to have you.
I have a friend actually from he's from New Orleans, and he came to visit me up here. He had never had Zaxby's before, and he was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "You don't know what Zaxby's is?"
Right.
It's just right down the road. So I took him to Zaxby's. He was like, "It's pretty good."
Yeah, it's really good.
So yeah, I love what's that restaurant? Raising Cane's.
I was just about to say, that's you.
Have you never had
Tell me
Raising
about that.
Cane's?
I had never.
I have.
Okay,
No, he
yeah.
taught me about Raising Cane's because I had never even heard of it.
Yeah.
And we went in Mississippi once. And actually, I think I did go another time when I was driving to New Orleans, funny enough. Stopped at Raising Cane's. I didn't know. It's like Zaxby's, but better.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I mean, it's just a little different. Have you ever heard of, well, we have it now here in Cordova, Guthrie's?
Yeah.
I've heard of it, but I've never had it.
Okay. Would you agree it's like a little overpriced?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a little overpriced for like what you're getting.
For chicken tenders.
Yeah, you're basically like,
Okay.
they have a super small menu. It's like they have their chicken tenders, fries, coleslaw, like toasted bread, and
That's it.
that's
and
almost
probably
it.
drinks, and that's it.
Yeah, like their sweet tea, and that's about it. It's very similar to Cane's, but I think Cane's is a little cheaper. It might be the same price or a little cheaper.
Well, I mean, Cane's is about $9-10. You know?
Okay, so that's about the same as Guthrie's.
Well, actually, Cane's is a little bit less.
Okay.
So, yeah. Guthrie's is more on the, if we want to say, I don't know, high end.
they want
Premium
Yeah,
chicken
yeah.
tenders.
This is the premium chicken
Yeah.
tenders, you know.
it's pretty wild, but I think just like having the diversity and the different restaurants that Memphis has, even though they don't have something like Papados or something like that.
Sure.
I really like it here. There is, God, what's that restaurant? Shoot. I think is it Corky's? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, barbecue.
That's one.
Yeah, so Corky's, some people were talking that up so big, and I went and had it, and I was like, this is not that good.
So my place that I tell people to get barbecue, I don't tell them any other place really other than Central.
Okay,
I'm
see,
a
I haven't
Central
been to
girl.
Central.
Okay.
That's the one.
Yeah, well, you gotta go to Central.
Okay.
That's where it's at. And where do you tell people to go, Dwayne?
Well, you know.
You said Big Bill's?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
by
I've
me,
never even heard of that.
Well, see, by me being a native Memphian, of course, I know all the barbecue spots, right?
Yeah.
So Corky's is more commercial. It's commercial barbecue.
Okay.
But to be honest, Corky's is actually okay for commercial barbecue.
Oh.
But if you want good barbecue and you're here in Memphis, I always go to Big Bill's. Matter of fact, they just opened another new Big Bill's location, second location, right out here off Kirby and Quince.
Okay.
Quince and Kirby. They're over there. But they have another location in Whitehaven on Elvis Presley.
Okay.
Another good one is Pollard's Barbecue. It's on.
I've never heard
I've
of it.
never heard of Pollard's. I've been here for 5 years.
He's teaching game right now.
Yeah.
Pollard's Barbecue is on Elvis Presley as well.
Okay.
It's a locally owned good barbecue place. Another good place is Cozy Corner. Cozy Corner is downtown Memphis.
Okay.
It's famous good barbecue. But
Literally, it's on A.W. Willis.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
you are about to be on St. Jude's campus. You'll see St. Jude's campus either to your, if you're heading west, you'll see it on your left, and it's right there. You'll pass it. It looks like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
It looks abandoned, but it's not. So
it's not abandoned.
it's not abandoned. Not
Good
at all.
barbecue in there.
I've not had Cozy Corner though, even though I live so close to it. I've not had it.
Cozy Corner's pretty good.
So what do you get from there?
Well, so I'm a barbecue shoulder sandwich kind of guy, right?
Okay.
I like it in sauce. I like slaw on my sandwich.
Okay.
I know that's a foreign concept to some people. Like they don't see how you mix slaw on a shoulder sandwich. But I mean that's my go-to. Yeah. I mean I like a good rib tip plate as well. I'll eat ribs, but I don't like them sauced. Like I like my ribs dry.
Really?
Yeah.
I love a lot of sauce. Really, on like all my barbecue, I love sauce on them.
Well, it depends on if you like a sweet sauce or you're like a mustard sauce.
Okay.
You know? I mean, you know, sauces here have a tendency to be more on the sweet side. Mm-hmm. But if you're more of a mustard-based, vinegar-based type person, then I could tell you another place you could go to and get, you know, like barbecue shop on.
I've heard about
Madison.
I've heard about that.
I don't really like barbecue shop.
Well, that's because they base their sauce in mustard,
And that's-
vinegar.
Okay,
And you like the
that's why.
sweeter?
Yeah.
I like a sweet sauce. I don't eat mustard, like, period. I like only buy mustard, like, if it has to do with the recipe. Or I'll buy Grey Poupon to put on a sandwich or something like that. I'm real funny acting when it comes to that.
That's what that's all about.
Yeah, I love like all different kinds of sauces. My wife Rachel, she like will put 1,000 different sauces on one sandwich. I'm like,
wow.
You're not even tasting this. But yeah, I love even just like the sweet, and then we'll get like a sweet heat, it will even mix some hot sauce with our barbecue and just see it, you know, how it adds a little heat to the barbecue sauce. And then I think the tangy mustard isn't that like a Carolina thing?
Yeah. Well. Yeah. It's more of the Carolinas. Yeah, because I remember the first time I got exposed to that was when I went over to North Carolina.
Okay.
They have that whole vinegar, mustard.
They've got the vinegar coleslaw. That's like their thing.
Yeah, and it's, in my personal opinion, it's not really that great. So I have some colleagues that live in the Carolinas, and we always have this wonderful debate between each other of like whose barbecue is the best. And I'm listen, man, listen. Stop the nonsense. Memphis is world famous for barbecue.
Correct.
Period. Of course, you have your Kansas, you have Texas. Everybody kind of has their own style. I tell anybody, Memphis does the pork really well. If you want good brisket, you go to Texas.
Texas, yep.
Texas is world known for their brisket.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, we could pontificate all day about Kansas, St. Louis.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you. Memphis, please don't kill me. I've lived here for 5 years. Literally, it'll be 5 years on Monday. But I really think Kansas City has the best barbecue I've ever tasted in my life.
Why?
Yes. It's just good.
So where'd you eat it?
I had it in Kansas City.
And what did you eat?
Yeah.
Oh God. It was something beef. Was it beef ribs? I think it was beef ribs. I was literally on an interview for residency, and I was interviewing at the University of Kansas, and they brought it in for us for lunch. So I don't remember the place. I know there's 2 big places that you can go, and I think they're both 2 men's names. But when I tell you, like, everybody was going back for second, thirds, and fourths, and that's the best barbecue. And I'm not a barbecue person. I like Memphis barbecue, but it's not like my holy grail. Like, if I really, really want some barbecue, I'm gonna go to Kansas City. And I'm a Midwesterner, so they're still kind of Midwest-ish in a way. So maybe I'm just loyal to that. I just think it's better.
I would tell you some of the best barbecue I've actually ever had was in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was a place called Eli's Barbecue. And me and Rachel had just went to the aquarium, and then we came out. We were going to go somewhere to eat, and so we looked up a place, and then we went there, and it just so happened to be like an expensive version of the Olive Garden. We were like, we're not about to go to somewhere like that.
Yeah.
So we looked up another place, and it was Eli's Barbecue, and was like, all right, yeah, we'll check it out. We go looking for it, and we can barely find it. Like, we have no idea where it is. We just pull up in this parking lot, and then so we're walking around, and it's like an outside setup. You know, people are like outside eating and whatnot. And but we're still looking at how to get in the place. Like, we're not sure where they're getting the actual food from. And this older couple's walking out. They're like, "Are y'all looking to get inside?" We're like, "Yes." And then they're like, "You have to go around the front." And then we're like, "All right, thank you." She's like, "Do you like your mac and cheese super thick?" And we were like, "Yeah, I guess."
Sure.
Yeah. She was like, "Cool, because when you take their mac and cheese, you can turn your bowl upside down and it doesn't come out."
Wow.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's really thick.
So we go in, and it's like a little shack area.
Yeah.
And No, they've got their menu on the wall that you know, in chalk and everything. It's a pretty cool place. But that was probably some of the best barbecue I've ever had. Eli's
Holes
barbecue.
in the walls are the best places to get
Yeah.
barbecue. The places that you like never think that that's what they even do in there.
Yeah.
That's the best place to get food.
Elwood Shack is like that. Have y'all heard? You've had that?
Yes.
Yeah. Have
Where
you
is
had that?
I don't even know what that is.
I'll take you one day.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's
I
good
think
stuff.
me and Rachel like just got their big platter thing that they have, and we just shared it. But I mean, I think it had ribs and some chicken and something else on there, and it was all really good.
Cool.
Yeah. The two places that you were talking about, is that something that you kind of have to know somebody in the Memphis area to figure out where they are?
Well, so for instance, like Big Bill's, I mean, that's not Big Bill's is a local staple here. So yeah, you kind of have to be local to know about it in a sense. But I mean, because like they don't have like a national platform like that. But
Or
I
like
mean,
Rendezvous or something like that.
But
Probably.
yeah.
but they have people outside of Memphis that know about them when they come. Because like we have like University of Memphis, a lot of college kids come here, or Rhodes or CBU, and then they tell their parents, "Hey, mom and dad, when you come to Memphis, we gotta go to Big Bill's barbecue, right?" So that's kind of their notoriety is kind of grassrooted, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I value like those mom and pop shops, especially this time because the pandemic hit and then like places were closing down like crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places to eat at around here was Sear Shack. Is a burger place that's in Bartlett.
Yeah.
And I think they actually had another location.
Yeah, it's over there on Sanderlin, Poplar and Sanderlin. It's right over behind the Malco Paradiso movie theater in that shopping center over there.
But yeah, like Sear Shack is, I mean, I guess they were not a real chain, but like it was a smaller type place and phenomenal food, kind of like a Five Guys type thing. Like they made their fries and the burgers were
Are they closed now? Because
yeah,
of
they shut down
COVID?
because of the pandemic.
And are they going to
For
reopen?
good.
Oh,
For good.
that's awful.
Wow.
Yeah, them and there's a place in I think Germantown called Farm and Fries, and so again, it's like one of those places where they're catering toward people who want like good quality meat and good quality ingredients, and they shut down for good because of the pandemic. So yeah, this thing is hitting some mom and pop stores pretty hard.
It's rough. I was telling some people, well, in my short life, I've never seen anything to come across the world that literally touches every single industry, every single person. Like even in healthcare, we were affected. Like the whole world just got turned upside down. And I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. Even if we had a recession, it's usually like, okay, this subset of people will be affected, but not, these industries. So it's just been a weird time. It's been a weird, odd time. So.
Yeah. I mean, how I guess the best way you can explain it, has it really affected the healthcare industry to you?
I will say here in this area, we saw a really big drop in how many people were coming to the ER, period. I think that was a combination of things. One, because people were told to stay out of the ER unless they were like critically ill. And I think a lot of times the people were super afraid to come to the hospital, just even if there was something wrong.
They didn't want to get
They didn't want to get COVID by coming into the hospital. And I've not known of anybody to get COVID just because they walked through the doors of a hospital.
Yeah.
But we've seen a lot of people to delay care that they could have had emergently. So meaning, like, if you have a heart attack, we 100% know how to fix that. We definitely have a clear delineated path of like how heart attacks are fixed. But there was a patient that I saw who had like chest pain on a Friday night, and she didn't come to the ER until Sunday. She had her heart attack, and it was, there was still something to be fixed. But if she had just come earlier, like it could have been an even better outcome for her. Same thing. There was one of my partners that had a patient that had like stroke symptoms, like 4 days prior before they came into the ER. If they came like within the first 24 hours, they could have gotten some medicine and possibly reversed their symptoms. So it was some things that we saw were pretty devastating. Of course, I've seen COVID-19 patients, which has been emotional for me because, of course, they have been for the vast majority people of color that I've personally seen. And of course, unfortunately, some of them have passed away. It's just been a very weird time.
Yeah.
And since I'm really just fresh out of residency, meaning, so I'm just like now able to practice on my own. I'm board certified now. I don't need to see patients with anyone supervising me. I just could have never expected something like this so early in my career.
Yeah. It's a heck of a time.
It's a heck of a time. Hell, it's a hell of a time
to get out there,
be
be
a
on
doctor.
your own.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the people I work with, for the most part, are really great, and we're supportive of each other. But since our volumes were down, our shift times were changed, so we cut back some hours. So even I was affected a little bit. I'm not going to say woe is me, because I'm definitely blessed to still have a job. But other doctors are part of other parts of the country. They got let go. Doctors that are about to finish residency and waiting for jobs, they're getting their contracts renegotiated, or saying that we don't need you anymore. We just don't have the volume. So they're scrambling and looking for jobs.
Wow.
So the fact that doctors are looking for jobs is
that's crazy.
That's huge, because basically I feel like being an ER doctor is a guarantee. There's going to be somebody that does something stupid all the time. There's going to be an accident that happens all the time. So even if people are on best behavior, things just happen. So, but the fact that emergency physicians are now, searching for jobs it's interesting.
Yeah,
it's an interesting time.
Dr. Weller was talking about how firecracker incidents are insanely huge.
Oh my God, yeah. Probably that, and trampoline incidents.
Trampolines?
And hoverboards, because kids are at home. People are just at home and they're bouncing on trampolines. They'll fall off of them. They'll slide through them. They'll break their arm. They'll break their ankle. I mean, they're at home just doing dumb shit, just because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And mom and dad are tired of watching. They need a break. Come on now. So just dumb things, just stuff happens.
That's wild. So what have I guess the number one thing you have seen as far as like really, come on now.
During this time?
Yeah.
I can't say I've seen anything like really. There's still been car accidents. I haven't heard. Let me see. I don't think there's been anything crazy.
I would figure most people are trying to stay safe.
They're
indoors.
trying to stay safe. I haven't seen any firecracker injuries, but it's just the beginning of summer, so that's gonna happen.
4th of July is coming up.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
When hoverboards were out, I mean, tons of hoverboard injuries. I can't say I've seen anything like crazy, but I've heard of a lot of crazy things. But you have to think about it. People are just at home with nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Stay safe at home.
Yeah.
Ish.
I've heard Netflix streams have gone up a lot.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Hulu, all that kind of stuff. So people
my personal Netflix and Hulu and Sling and Philo have gone up significantly.
Yeah, those people are making bank off of that. But so going back to the black people thing about seeing more of them into the ER or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that was a big, I don't know, weird turn for black people for this pandemic. Because when it first started happening, the rumor was that black people can't get it. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was becoming we were the most susceptible to it. And so I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast. He had Rhonda Patrick on there. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about how black people, because the melanin in our skin, what it does is it's not soaking up as much heat from the sun and all the rays from the sun, so it's blocking out some of that, which doesn't allow us to get vitamin D as much. Mm-hmm. And it was saying that basically vitamin D might be a help in fighting COVID. Mm-hmm. And it was saying that might be the reason why black people are getting higher numbers of getting COVID. And then there's also the theory that just because we live in more poverty areas, that our food isn't as good and our health conditions aren't as good. So that's another reason why we get it. What do you think as far as what those two, the vitamin D thing, and then I guess just black people in our health situation?
So I think the vitamin D thing may have something to it. I just need more data to kind of prove that.
I think that's the issue right now. Is they don't have enough.
We just don't have enough data. Yeah. I think as far as why blacks have been more disproportionately affected from COVID-19 has to do from a couple of things. most of us are front care or frontline workers, quote unquote, which I'm tired of that term as well. But we are the nurses. We are the home health workers. We work in fast food. We work in transportation. We are lawn care. We do things with the general public on the front lines all the time. We are the essential workers. So we could not stop working our jobs. I'm a doctor. I couldn't stop going to work. I was needed more than ever. So I think that is one thing. And I would like to add into their Hispanics as well. They're also disproportionately on the front line. And I think that we haven't talked enough about what the Hispanic community has also been going through with COVID-19, because in their culture, they live multi-generational in one home. So you might have your grandma and taking care of the great-grandbaby in one home. And so it's hard to social distance when you have several generations at home, and then people still have to go out and go to the general public and work. So I think that we haven't fully tapped into what happened to the Hispanic community. But I think the same thing with us and the Black community. We're very communal. We go to church, we have picnics, we have barbecues, and we are very social. That is what we do. We gather together for support. And I think part of our innate culture has harmed us in a way. We are also disproportionately affected by chronic disease. So your high blood pressure, your diabetes, your asthma, and also things like chronic kidney disease are also disproportionately affected in the Black community, which is a multitude of things that causes
obesity
that.
in general.
And obesity, thank you, and obesity as well. So we're disproportionately affected by that, which honestly makes you more at risk for having a serious case of COVID-19. So it's just multifactorial. I hate that we thought at first that Black people couldn't get it, because I think we could have prevented a lot more cases if people really understood their risk. And I don't ever want to scare people, but it's just more like being safer rather than sorry. So I just think it's hard to just say one reason. I was actually listening to The Daily from the New York Times, and they did a whole podcast about how COVID-19 impacted the Black community in New Orleans, and they talked about the big Zulu gala that happens like during the Mardi Gras season. And so how many of those men in the Zulu organization unfortunately caught COVID-19 and died. And they highlighted one of the leaders of the Zulu nation there. And, he was just a worker, and then all of a sudden got sick, was on a ventilator, and unfortunately passed away. So that was a very interesting podcast. But they broke down some of the same things that you were talking about, like the chronic disease, the racism, the disparities, the health disparities as to why Black people have been disproportionately affected.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about that in just New Orleans for Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Because that was in
February.
February. Yeah, and that's when this thing started jumping off.
Right. Because we shut down, or the city started shutting down, and things started to close down in early March, at least around these parts. So yeah, interesting.
I think it's very unfortunate that, I guess, medical places and other places, as far as restaurants and businesses, were just, we didn't have any real direction,
Right.
Even the president and then all of Congress were
Right.
just try this.
Right.
Yeah,
We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, nobody really knew how to deal with it. And I mean, it's really unfortunate, but you can't really expect them to make too much of a decision, because if we had shut down everything for the month of March, and if we had decided that maybe in the middle of February, and we're like, hey, everybody shut down for one whole month, people would be super upset about that.
Right.
And how are you going to get a business to prepare for something like that?
Right.
For 2 weeks, you have 2 weeks to prepare for an entire month of shutdown.
Right.
It's going to be super hard for everybody.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know. I don't really know what we could have done that would have been better, quote unquote, but maybe there's something. I don't know.
I mean, so that same podcast, The Daily, is my holy grail. And they've been talking about COVID since December. Because they were covering it all the way when it was in Wuhan. So I had heard a little bit about it, but I guess I was trying to just compartmentalize it. So I guess my guess would be, if we had just shut down earlier, unfortunately, and been more strict and like really just shut it down and just stayed on lockdown, and then, you know, during the lockdown strategically look at like Italy and China and how they tried to reopen. I think if we had a more disciplined and cohesive strategy with other countries, I think we'd probably been better off. But I think our healthcare system is just so fragmented that it would have been hard to do that anyway, because you have the public health system, like your CDC, your NIH, and your local like health departments, and then you've got hospitals, which can be public or private, and they all have their own competing interests, which is always about money. So it's hard to have a unified front against something like this, because there's just so many competing different interests. Whereas if you go to your China, your Canada, your Switzerland, your Italy, they have a unified healthcare system. So it's easier for them to put the smackdown nationwide and be done with something and say, this is the policy, this is we're going to do it, this is how we're going to do it. But in the U.S., it's just like, well, what about my money? And, so
I was talking to Dr. Weller about like, you know, if what do you see lacking in the health industry, and what do you think would, if you could get more of something, what would it be? And he's like, well, you know, you always want more of everything, but it's kind of crazy thinking about what everybody's been talking about with the defunding of the police and everything. And me personally, I don't think police should be defunded. I think their money needs to be rerouted, because sometimes they're probably getting a lot of money going to the wrong stuff. Like, even so, I was in the Air Force, and you know, if we didn't spend money, just like pretty much everything else, if we didn't spend money, they take it away. And so, like, if we had a surplus of money, they'd be like, hey, what do y'all want to spend this on? Just let us know. I was like, that's kind of crazy. Like, thousands of dollars are in the hands of people who are just, you know, what do y'all want? So I think the money should just be better strategically funded for healthcare, for police, for everything. And then I think that would help out a lot better.
Well, I think that's just kind of how it works. So, like, I'm a corporate guy. Like I work in corporate America, and I'm an IT guy by trade. So, from working with large corporations, from working in the healthcare sector and all different sectors, like you just said, we have budgets. Companies have budgets, and strategically, if you don't spend the amount allocated to your budget, the finance looks at it and says, "Oh, it's X amount of millions of dollars over here that they didn't use.
You don't need this.
You don't need it." So then they end up taking it away from your budget, so your budget shrinks. So then, of course, when any type of company is looking at cost reductions or anything like that, the first thing they look at is payroll, because payroll is your number one expense in any business. So, you know, they say, well, hey, let's trim the tree a little bit. You know what I mean? So then, you know, if a department loses $5 million or $10 million, you know, then you look at salaries and you say, well, hey, I don't need X amount of people, you know. But then, of course, if you look at the structure, you need your worker bees. So you can afford to lose some VPs, some senior level management versus your 50 people that work in the warehouse. Because if you don't have the warehouse workers, the product's not moving or whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just strategically kind of how they look at it. But like you said, with police, I think that, like you said, reallocate the funds to something more resourceful, right? So, like, for instance, how we buy police cars. You know, they currently use, well, I know here in Memphis, they use Dodge Challengers or, you know, Chargers, the four-door. And then they put all that equipment, that heavy equipment and stuff in them. So, and then, like, our sheriff department here, they run a lot of, like, Tahoes. You know, big gas guzzler, thirsty, you know.
Yeah.
Well, how about a Honda product? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it's just, you know, and I know I'm speaking
with those American vehicles.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm sure people are going to be like, this is an American entity. We should buy American.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I mean, true, right? So every law enforcement entity across the country, they have large contracts with, like, Ford, General Motors. You know what I mean? So if we want to stay American, which I have no problem with supporting an American product, as we should, let's go back to the table with General Motors and say, hey, GM, you know, we like the Tahoe, but instead of using the regular gas guzzling Tahoe, let's look at the hybrid Tahoe. Yeah. Or let's look at the hybrid this or that, you know, to try to see where can we save money. Now, it may not sound it may not sound like a savings, but if you can shave 10% of your fuel costs across the whole department or whole state, let's just use a state as an example.
Yeah.
If you're spending $10 million a year in fuel, if you save 10%, you saved $1 million.
Yeah.
That don't sound like a lot.
Multiply that by the whole country.
But there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's how you do it.
I guess I look at it in a different way. I think when people are saying defund the police, they are saying reallocate the money. Instead of investing in more military grade stuff for, i.e., the city of Memphis Police Department, why don't we put that into more community policing or put that into a new training program so that new police officers have to stay in Orange Mound for 6 months and actually really understand what's going on in that community and realize that this person isn't, just committing crime to commit crime. They have multiple social issues that they need to address. Why don't we take that money and invest in training more social workers that get paid a decent salary so that they can reach out to these communities and give them the social services that they need? Why don't we take that money instead of, militarizing the police and, provide more health care to people, to provide free screenings for different things, for actually giving people the resources, because most of the calls that police get are not about actual crime. They are really deep-rooted social issues that just need to be addressed. And the outcome of that is crime, i.e., I'm born in poverty. I don't know how to get anything. I'm trying to hustle on the street, get a couple of dollars so that I can help feed my family. So I get in trouble for hustling, but really I'm just in poverty and I don't have a way to get out. And my school sucks because of where I live and my school isn't funded. So I'm not really getting the greatest educate. It's just a vicious cycle. So there's other ways to stop crime indirectly without arresting someone. But usually people commit crimes for a reason. Of course, you got those people out there that are just maniacs and are just going to do sin just to be, just to sin. But there's a lot of people that commit crimes because they have a need. Yeah. And they're just short. I need $20 so I can do this, or I need this so I can do that. Yeah. And that's why it's crimes of opportunity. Yeah. So that's what I think that the movement is really trying to say. And I'm for it. I'm actually super for that. I agree with reallocating the money to things that we actually need and we're not funding. And I think if we did that, then crime would go down and we wouldn't have to worry about black men being snuffed out on camera. So,
well, I think you have to look at it. I do agree with what you're saying. I think you can look at it from different angles. But one way that you look at it is, yes, we do, even though there are social issues that we must tackle. Also, at the same time, America is we believe in the Second Amendment, right? The right to bear arms. So with that being said, America love their guns. It's just part of our culture. We love guns. So we have so many people with access to high-powered guns. You can't have the police walking around with, let's just say 9mm handguns, and all of their adversaries are walking around with cannons. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. You're outgunned in that perspective.
But that highlights another problem that we've continued to talk about in our country and nobody is doing anything about, is that why do I, as a regular American citizen, need an AR-47 or AK-47 or some crazy assault weapon? Why do I need that? Why is that floating around on the street? And if I do have some reason to have it, why do I not have some sort of a background check or something like that to make sure that I am not going to be someone that is going to just haul off and just shoot up my neighborhood or go walk into a school and to shoot a school up? I think America has had multiple times to try to correct some of these rooted issues, and we've continued to ignore them. And I just feel like we're at a boiling point. COVID made us all sit down and pay the fuck attention. We ain't had nothing to do but watch TV and to jump on the trampoline and to get random injuries. But I think this is why this moment is so pivotal, because COVID made us stop. And then we continue to start to see the errors in our ways as Americans. And I hope that, with this momentum, it's not just about fighting racism. It's not just about fighting police brutality. It is truly about making our society more equitable and fair and safe. And that means, sorry, Jimmy Bob, maybe you don't need that, AR or whatever. I'm not a gun girl, if you can hear.
Right.
You don't need this assault rifle, but
Right.
you can have this rifle to, shoot or go hunt or do whatever you want to do. Nobody's saying that you can't, have your guns for sport or for personal protection, but we need to actually wonder in this country why so many people here feel like they need to have, personal protection as well. That's a whole nother thing.
You're like
That's a whole nother thing.
You're basically backtracking the problem. You're saying it might be okay to have that, but why do you feel the need?
Why do you
to
feel the
have
need?
it?
Yeah.
And it might be because there's so many guns already on the streets, and so people are like, I need to get me a gun.
Right.
So it's kind of like what you were talking about, like the
Right.
police. Like it might be fine for police to just have tasers, but it's not right now because so many people have guns.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
They're
and
out.
it's basically unregulated.
Yeah.
And I say this too. I've had somebody ask me that, like, as soon as I moved down here, they're like, "Oh, so you're gonna get a gun?" I was like, "For what?" "Oh, for protection." I was like, "I got Jesus. Like, Jesus been with me the whole time. I'm good over here."
Yeah.
Like, yes, I have had some crime happen to me, but do I ever feel like I've needed to have a gun to protect myself? Can't say that I have.
Yeah.
But I know, again, I'm from the North, I'm from the Midwest, and so that's a different culture than someone that may be from the South or somewhere else in the country where, man, guns is what you do. You learn how to shoot. You
Yeah.
learn how to, you go hunting with dad, and those are the things that you do. It's
It's a gun culture. We're going.
It's
I'm from
a
the
different
South.
culture.
You know what I mean? I grew up with my uncles and stuff that had shotguns. My grandfather had shotguns, and it's never that you use them on people.
Yeah.
He hunts. He likes the great outdoors. He like to get a little deer or something every now and then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think, and this conversation could go a whole nother direction, but let's just admit nobody has clean hands in
Yeah.
this situation.
Oh, yeah, nobody.
Nobody has clean hands. So when you start talking about gun reform and cleaning up this and that, understand people who make guns, Smith Wesson, Sig Sauer, all the other gun manufacturers, our current ammunitions contractor for the United States government, Northrop Grumman, those guys, nobody has clean hands. The munitions, they supply munitions to people all over the world. So, you know what I mean? So when you start talking about, let's just take guns off the street, let's do this, and that, you're talking billions and $1 trillion industries.
And that's why it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too many. It's too you got too many people that you affect when it's like that.
Absolutely, yeah. The companies you were talking about, like Northrop Grumman and Boeing and
Right.
Lockheed Martin, like
Right.
they make aircraft for
Of course.
other countries, and
Of course.
we try to. So like when I was in the military, I think we have 3 different F-35s, and this is like our newest fighter jet. Well, apparently Trump was like, "Hey, we're wasting money on these things because they're really expensive." Like, I can't remember how much, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars
Oh,
to
wow.
make these fighter jets. Well, Trump was like, "Yeah, we're wasting money on these. Stop making them." And they decided, well, we're just going to make them and sell them to other countries. And sometimes we're okay with that. Sometimes we're not okay with that because we don't want just other countries
To have
having
our technology.
having
Yeah.
the same technology we have, but vice versa. Like China, and little known fact, we really don't want to go to war with China.
Yeah.
They're pretty powerful,
Yeah,
and they have a lot of people.
Yeah, we don't want that here.
And them and Russia, like those two, we would have a really tough time with them. But yeah, just like the abilities that other countries would have if they had like everything that we have, it's not good. So the arms race that, they say like the Cold War, and we had the arms race and everything, it's still technically going on till this day because we're all competing for militaristic advantages. And that right there is what fuels America. Like we love more. Like everything has to be more. So it's really affects our everyday people. Like everyday people feel like they need more guns, more ammo, more everything so that we can protect ourselves. But
it's interesting because I heard, and I don't know if this is a fact or not, but when quarantine hit, like gun sales went through the roof.
Yeah, because people felt like the apocalypse was about to happen.
Yeah.
Like they thought that when the pandemic hit, like all rules were going to get broken. I mean, you saw with the riots, like people started smashing in windows and offices and stuff like
That's
that.
true.
So people felt like I need to get more guns and more ammo to protect myself.
That's
so
true.
Well, they felt crime was going to go up.
Yeah.
Because you have people who are, they're not employed, for whatever reasons, because due to the pandemic.
lack of resources.
So they feel like, oh, well, this subset of people is going to rob me, or they're going to try to, commit a crime against me. There were lines lined up outside of gun stores nationally.
Yeah.
And gun stores got considered essential. You know
Yeah,
what I
which
mean?
is crazy, right?
Yeah. Gun stores were considered essential.
Yeah.
So, like, literally, Academy Sports sold out of bullets. They literally, the shells were clean.
Oh, my God.
They sold out of 9mm and 40 caliber bullets.
Wow.
Yes. I saw it with my own eyes. I was in the store. I was like, holy hell.
That's crazy.
Yeah, literally. So, I mean, that just, and like I said, I'm not disparaging guns. I'm just stating the facts, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, but America runs on capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
We are a very capitalistic society. It's what we are.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just the way that it is here. So, one action affects another action. If you take this away, then how many people over here do you affect? If you take that away, then you affect this subset of people. So it's just kind of it's our culture here.
Yeah. I was listening to Elon Musk talk, and he was like, that he was really for us not shutting down. Like he was really for like maybe a 2-week shutdown, and then like, hey, let's get back to going because. Him with all his stuff, he's got that boring company where he's trying to like dig holes and tunnels in LA or maybe all of California. But basically, the face you're making means you don't know what he's talking about.
No,
So-
I know Elon Musk because of Tesla and him being like the weird genius that he is,
yeah.
but he's boring holes in California.
Correct.
Well, he
So-
wants to build a hyperloop.
So
That's
his
what it is.
idea
Okay.
is that flying cars is stupid. He's like, if everybody has like a flying car, people think about that for the future.
Yeah.
He's like, flying cars, that means everybody's a pilot now. So if everybody's flying in the air with no rules or anything, then what happens if the car goes dead? When you're on the ground, if your car goes dead, you just stop. If you're in the sky,
You gonna crash and hit
it
the
crashes.
ground. Yeah.
He was like, yeah, so flying cars is a dumb idea. But if we build holes under the ground, then people can easily just go underground, travel at hundreds of miles per hour to wherever you need to go, and then you're just there.
Freaking
Instantly.
Elon Musk. I want to shake his hand.
He's like, that's pretty much the whole purpose of like the underground like sub train systems.
Yeah.
Is all the train systems in like New York and whatnot. They can go as fast as they want to. They just get to where they need to go, and then they're done.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good idea. A lot of California companies were against it because they were like, hey, you're digging holes in my ground.
But my other thing is isn't California like one earthquake away from just being like broken off from the United States anyway?
Yeah,
so what
so-
do you have to lose? I
Yeah.
guess, but just a bunch of money.
And a
and
lot of
time.
people use that argument against him. They say that the earthquakes are going to be like, you're digging holes in the ground. They've got earthquakes. He's like, actually, earthquakes, the worst part of the earthquake is actually tertiary, like on the ground level, because the ground collapses. But if, when it collapses, everything underneath is fine because the earthquake doesn't happen underneath. It happens on the ground level. So there's nothing going on.
Freaking
somewhat.
Elon Musk. The last thing I heard about him is that him and his baby mother were trying to name their future child, or I don't know if the child has been born.
Yeah, it's already been born.
Some combination of like letters and numbers that like nobody can pronounce and like nobody will let him do it. Like
Yeah.
that's the last thing I've heard about Elon Musk.
Yeah, they
But-
named it, and it's like it looks like the letter A and then E and then like 12 something.
Yeah, it's
like that's the kid's name.
What? How you gonna name your kid that? Like how do you
A12.
pronounce that? Like A12.
I mean, Elon Musk is So he's a genius, right? I mean,
certified.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's
incredible.
He's a genius, and I mean, so we give Elon Musk for credit for a few things. A lot of people don't know. He started PayPal.
Yeah.
So he was on that. Then he took that money and flipped it. Then he started Tesla. So then Elon Musk was able to prove the Tesla battery powered car model at scale. And so he has proven that. Now it's still a relatively expensive technology.
Yeah.
But he proved that it works. So now other companies are starting, like Porsche has taken this technology. They got
what is it?
Taycan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing is sexy.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is. So, and a Porsche is a performance car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A Porsche is a performance car with battery technology.
Yeah.
A Tesla is a battery car, is a battery technology wrapped around a car. It's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
So, of course, Porsche just took it and made it better.
Yeah.
And as other companies will do the same thing.
Have you seen that Ford Mustang?
Yeah, I've seen it. Not really a fan. I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm a good old V8, V10, V12 kind of guy. You know what I mean? The battery thing doesn't really get my juices flowing.
Why not? It's because it doesn't give you that rev, that
like
that power that you need.
Listen, when I drive, like I like big motors. I like sports cars. I like exotics. When I crank up my Ferrari or my Lamborghini or my Mustang, I want to hear that engine roar.
Yeah.
It's part of it. You know what I mean?
Where the Ferrari at?
Well, I'm just saying, when I get to that point in life.
Okay, I'm about to say, you holding out.
You know what I mean? When I get to that point in life, when I get my Corvette and get in my Z06 Corvette, I want to feel when I shifted the transition of the transmission and the engine and it all coming together. It's an adrenaline rushed feeling that you don't get that from
that's
battery.
how I feel when I'm gonna have my Harley. I don't want no little crotch rocket. I want to feel the weight and the power of a real Harley.
And they have like electric motorcycles, and people are like that.
Nah.
It takes away from
right.
Takes away from the feel.
Right. And then nobody can hear you coming on an electric motorcycle.
Right. And some people have made that case that it's kind of dangerous to have like electric cars because you can't hear them around a corner or turning or something like that. So that's pretty wild though. Yeah, I'm all for the innovation. I'm all for us figuring out new stuff and everything like that. But yeah, some people just like that feel, like the analog. So like even with like my music and everything, I use all plugins. Like everything's electric. I don't have any like analog plugins. And some people like when they're making music, they're like, hey, I want, this compressor, this limiter, this reverb and stuff like that. And they want it analog. They want the physical thing in the room with them instead of just like the digital plug-in because some people say it gives a much better sound. And then other people I just like having it there in the room with me instead of just like on my computer. So I was actually asking Dr. Weller about the future of like surgeries and stuff like that as far as having the technology because I've seen have you seen those videos of like the robots doing the surgery? That's pretty wild.
That's been well, to a certain extent, that's been happening. There's lots of robotic GYN surgeries that they've been doing, but there's still there's a patient on the table here. There may be two surgeons in the room, but they're literally in the opposite corners, and they're like operating like it's like a video game. And so I remember when I was in medical school, I was watching a hysterectomy, a robotic guided hysterectomy. It's just able to be less invasive and all those other things. So they still had to, the surgeon still had to walk into to the patient and do certain things to the patient directly, but the actual, some of the stitching and removing they were doing robotically. So but I know that they have like some robots that are almost like completely like just do it themselves for the most part.
Okay, I was about to ask.
I'm pretty sure.
Were the robots able to do it completely by themselves, or was it guided?
It's guided. It's almost so. What I've experienced and what I've seen is literally like you're controlling the hands. Okay. Like it's my hands doing it, but it's the robot's hands over there on the patient doing it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So
so you understand, and I know you know artificial intelligence is leading the way on that type of
Absolutely.
technology.
Yeah.
So the way that the technology works and the way that with the internet, the expansion of the internet will have the bandwidth power for somebody to be sitting on an island in somewhere in the Caribbean or wherever. And if you are a doctor with a specialized skill set and you're on vacation and they need somebody to perform a surgery right now, that doctor can flip open their laptop, get an internet connection. Of course you need proper bandwidth to do it, but then you can sit there and control that robot in the emergency room or wherever, operating room, to be able to perform that surgery. That's where that technology is going. That type of...
That makes me nervous.
Why does it make you nervous?
It makes me nervous because...
Because of what could go wrong?
It makes me nervous because I feel like we're losing less and less touch in medicine. What's his name? Secretary of HUD.
Dr. Ben Carson?
Dr. Ben Carson. He was healing hands,
Yes.
right? That was the name of his book and his biography. And I take that really personally as a doctor. Like, gifted hands. Yes, gifted hands.
Okay.
But like if I'm touching someone, I truly believe that I have healing power that sometimes just putting your arm around somebody can just be healing.
Yeah.
And I feel that medicine, as technology has developed over, the last 100 years, we're really losing the touch. There's honestly really no reason for me to examine a patient anymore. I mean, I put my stethoscope on people for show sometimes, and sometimes I might be listening for something specific, but to diagnose you, I don't necessarily need to use the same cues that we had to have like back in the 1800s and 1900s, because we didn't have x-rays and CT scans and medicine and antibiotics and things like that. So as we've developed more and we've learned more about medicine and had technology, I can touch you less and less. Oh, you hurting? Where you hurting at? Oh, right here? Okay, maybe that's your gallbladder. Let's either get an ultrasound or let's get a CT scan. Boom. It needs to come out or it's fine. And get blood work. But it's just less and less of that touch. And I think that our society needs that more, of just healing hands or gifted hands of people touching them. We are not... I think that's part of the reason why people had such a hard time with the pandemic as well, because you can't touch anybody. You have to be 6 feet apart. Man, do you know how many hugs I really, really, really miss because of the pandemic? I don't know. That's why it makes me nervous. I just feel like we're becoming further and further apart in ways instead of getting closer and closer together.
Yeah.
I think social media brings us together in a certain way, but then technology also brings us apart.
Yeah.
So I just think, and as far as healthcare is concerned, we just really have to be careful.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's a healing art and it's a science, but there's still some human to human touch that needs to happen.
Yeah. I feel like we're getting closer and closer socially together, but just emotionally not as so much together, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to, we can just call somebody. Back then, if you wanted to see somebody, you had to go see them.
Right.
1800s, whatever, 1900s. You had to actually go there, and you couldn't just like pick up the phone and call somebody.
Right.
So, now we can do FaceTime. You were talking about doing all the Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
Which some people are probably happy about that, because
Yes.
they were like, oh, I don't have to go to an actual meeting. I can just do
Right.
this Zoom from home, and boom, there you go. So that's interesting.
But I mean, but the pandemic also so if you want to talk from a good point of the pandemic, it exposed the technology at a lot of companies and places. So
the lack thereof.
the
And the lack thereof, yeah.
Right. So it forced companies and organizations to become more innovative in their approach
Yes.
to how they use technology. You know what I mean? So like a lot of people, like I said, I understand technology from the ground up. So a lot of companies were still using Windows 7. Well, for those that don't know, Microsoft doesn't even support Windows 7 anymore.
Yeah.
So they're not even providing updates. So here it is, you're running an out of date. I'm not gonna say it's obsolete.
Yeah.
It's still relevant, but it's obsolete, right? Because Windows 10 been around for years. So you're running a system that has multiple potential security threats and this and that, then you're holding people's data, different this and that. So then, of course, you got all these people working from home. And then a lot of the average person don't understand how the internet works. They don't understand how the router, the Wi-Fi in their houses work. So, of course, they have, subpar internet connections. They trying to do all these high bandwidth Zoom calls, Microsoft Team calls, and different things like that. And it's just showing that, a lot of people were not prepared for how the pandemic, for instance, the pandemic where I work forced 70% of our workforce globally to work from home. So you talking hundreds of thousands of people.
Jeez.
Over 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Over 100,000 people had to work from home.
Now, how do you feel about that moving forward? Because I thought it was kind of hilarious. I was like, well, if you've got this many people working from home now,
right?
Can they just keep doing it?
Well, yeah.
Well, so it did a few things. Number one, it forced the company to look at all of its operations top down, right? To say, hell, we pay for this much real estate over here. We got a 50,000 square foot building over here. We don't need that.
Yeah.
When 80% of the people in the building was working from home, we don't need that anymore. so it's making us shrink operations. We're doing several cost out initiatives right now. That is my daily grind. Every day I wake up and live and breathe. How do we save the company money? Do we trim out this circuit? Do we take this service out? Do we take this out? Customers don't need this. Employees don't need that. We don't need 50 printers anymore. Now we just need 5. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So once again, we're reallocating money because we're saving the company. Now due to the pandemic, everybody can go back to their landlords and say, hey, look, I know we signed a 15-year lease on this, but we need to cut that down about 5.
Yeah.
Come on, work with us on that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this forced the companies globally to become more resourceful with the resources that they have.
Yeah.
So a lot of our people currently work from home. They're still working from home. And our company has actually said, hey, look, we're not going to force you to go back to work, go back to the building if you can still perform your job successfully working from home. So the pandemic actually it probably pushed us ahead in society probably by 10 years maybe. You know what I'm saying? Because it forced the use of Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all these virtual platforms. Skype is going away. It's being retired. So that's why they built out Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams will replace Skype.
Maybe that's why Google Hangouts stepped up so much too.
Yeah. So Google is trying to compete because Google is its own ecosystem, technical ecosystem. It has like Hangouts and Google Docs and Google this and Google that. Yeah. They want to compete with Microsoft. And the thing I like about Google is that Google is actually agnostic, right? You can use it on any platform, iOS, Linux, Windows, Mac, PC, all that. So, it's very. We live in a very interesting time right now.
I'm really been interested in what will come out of all this because I feel like whatever industry you're in, how do they respond? Like, how do they respond to the lack of technology or just having the people not coming to work and then showing back up to work? It's like, you could have just not come back into work, So I'm really hopeful that people, I actually work as an automation technician at Owens Corning. Okay. So there's some, I guess, more corporate people who are like the engineers for the company. They're talking about how they haven't been to work. They've been doing everything from home. I'm just like, you should be able to tell them, like, hey, can I just keep working from home? Some people don't like working from home. They're like, I can't get as much done because I'm at home. So if I just want to go get a beer, I can just go get a beer. And then other people are like, it's the best thing ever because, I'm with my family and stuff like that. So, but even what you were talking about where the medicals, like, those people they didn't have a choice. They had to go to work. So I think being able to have a company that's flexible like that, as you said, it pushed us forward.
Right.
Like, as you said, about 10 years. So,
Well, I mean, when you look at restaurants, I mean, like, for instance, like healthcare restaurants, just for instance, healthcare, right? Hospitals, there are some things that you just simply cannot do from your house. You cannot mop a hospital floor at your house.
correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You cannot admit a patient that walked through the front door at your house. You need to physically be there to say, hey, welcome to so-and-so hospital, welcome to so-and-so office or whatever, sign this form, do this, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all that will change eventually, but there are some things that you must have. You must have facilities. Facilities people have to be on the facility, right? You know what I mean? So you can't work virtually. Same thing with, fast food restaurants or restaurants, period. A lot of them lost revenue, but the smart ones stood back and say, hey, look, we got to re-innovate our process. The CDC required us to close our doors. We have to operate at half capacity, or we can't allow people in at all. I've talked to a couple of restaurant owners. What they did was they retooled their POS system. They shaved down their menus. I was like, look, if you're smart, you'll do a cost out analysis on every item you sell on your menu. And
Actually, so.
yes, that you actually sell, right? Because a lot of these places with these really inflated menus, like for instance, like Cheesecake Factory.
I was about to say Cheesecake Factory. I love you, Cheesecake Factory, but your menu is too big.
Cheesecake Factory is like reading a dissertation almost.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like 20 pages.
Absolutely.
Literally. So you're like, oh, I thought I want chicken fingers. You flip it over.
Oh, maybe
no.
I want fish and chips.
Oh, then you flip it over. The Kobe beef burger looks great. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's so many options.
Yeah.
There's a study that's done. When you give humans too many options, you confuse them.
There's a saying, a confused mind says no.
That's right. That's right. So if you simplify the menu for the restaurants, you take it to an all carry out or takeout concept, and then you just streamline it. A lot of people mad at Starbucks right now, because for different reasons socially, but Starbucks put out a public statement and said before the pandemic, they crunched their numbers. 80% of their sales was from their mobile app. People was ordering coffee before paying for it, and then they just go to their local Starbucks and pick it up. So now Starbucks just announced like 3 days ago they're closing 400 stores. Globally.
That's crazy.
They're closing 400 stores, and a lot of them they're reformatting them for just carry out only.
Borderline kiosk at that point.
Yeah. Carry out only. Carry out, drive through only. That's it. I mean, not carry out. I mean, drive through only.
Yeah.
That's it. Because 80% of your people are like, I don't want to disparage the human race, but a lot of them, especially the millennials and the ones after the millennials, all they know is technology.
Yeah.
So when you give them a phone and an app and you say, hey, do this, then eventually they learn, they keep doing it, and then they show their parents or whatever. So now you have the older generations learning technology, and you just get them accustomed to doing it a certain way. Then you just force technology on them.
But they also incentivized it. I think you get like some sort of a discount or a point or something like that. Anytime you incentivize something, that's going to drive people to do that as well.
Right. There's a lot of companies that like restaurants that do that. Like they'll give you a discount or credit on like your next order if you download the app.
Even like Uber Eats, Postmates, things like that. They give credits out. They give money back. They give
think
you
about
discounts.
all this data that Starbucks has. Your local coffee shop they have, right? They know who you are. They know where you live. They know what you drive. Because if you say, oh, yeah, just bring it out to my car. Like if you pull up, I'm in the black Honda. They know you drive a 1999 Honda Accord. It's black, 4-door. It's right there. You see what I'm saying? So now they have all this data on their customers. They can data mine you, flip their products and sell you other products, expand in other ways.
But that's dangerous.
I mean, but I would have.
It's got its pros and cons.
It has its pros and cons.
It's got its pros
But
and
as
cons.
we're learning, of course, with the whole Facebook incident and the whole, Russian data hacking thing, there's a lot of information about ourselves out there.
There was even recently I saw something about Google Chrome. You know how they like have their incognito window.
No, don't tell me.
Oh yeah,
about
I
Google
only
Chrome.
use Chrome.
I only use Chrome as well. I use Safari for like one thing that I have to do, and then I just use Chrome. Literally 99% of everything else I do is on.
But they had something recently about the incognito window, like how you can just pull that. They were like, yeah, we have something that I think has been breached from the incognito windows, and I was like, that's crazy.
Yep.
So my incognito isn't really incognito.
That's what it seems like. So Google, they slipped up on that one.
Right. I mean, like I said, with the whole incognito thing, you have to understand how servers work, how IP addressing work, how NAT works, which is network address translation, how subnets work, how VLANs work. In layman terms, anytime you log on a technical device, a computer, right? Let's say if I got on the computer on your Wi-Fi right now, my computer, your router assigns my computer an IP address. The IP address is then the IP address is translated on your network, and it goes back through your router, and it goes through whoever your ISP is, which is your internet service provider. It goes back to that NOC, and it sends that data, and it says, hey, IP address 10.192.blah, blah, 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 or whatever is trying to access this amount of information, and it just passes through their switch. So they can identify what type of computer you're using, because every computer has something called a MAC address. Any type of device that gets on the internet has a network card in it. It's called a MAC address. That MAC address is burned in. You cannot change it. IP addresses change, but the MAC addresses never change. So when you assign those, when you use those across the network, they know what you're using. Like, for instance, if you use Comcast at your house, I'm just throwing an example. Yeah. If you use Comcast and you have 2 smart TVs, a PlayStation, an Xbox, 5 laptops, 3 cell phones, everything has its own MAC address. So Comcast can run the numbers, or Xfinity can run the numbers, and they know in this zip code, we have this many smart TVs, we have this many iPhone users, we have this. Then you can break it out. iPhone 8, iPhone 9, iPhone 11, Android. So they know this. So unless you actually pay for something called VPN, where you can hide all your IP addresses and you reroute that traffic across the internet to where it's blanketed, where it's like dark, the incognito piece to the Google side, it's really not exactly incognito.
Yeah.
It really just more
for
so
personal reasons, really.
Right.
It's not so much for like the people on the other side.
Right. It really more so just hides you from advertisers in a sense.
I just like it when you talk about technology.
Yes.
When you talk about IP addresses, ISPs, VPNs, routers.
That's what I do.
Feel tingly on the inside.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I hope the listeners feeling tingly as
I
well.
hope y'all feel tingly too. They're probably like, Lord, who are these people? Where did y'all find these?
Yeah,
crazy
my
people?
wife kind of hates that too. Like I'll try to explain it to her. 'Cause I'm like, this is actually like you can use this. Like,
Yeah, it makes sense.
every day. Not like it's funny because all the stuff that he knows about that kind of stuff, not that many people know it now, but like maybe 20 years down the road, that might be the standard for like every human to know that kind of stuff.
Right.
He's just ahead of the game as far as like actually knowing what it is and how it works. Like the average person doesn't know how their cell phone works.
Exactly.
Zero. They have zero clue. Zero clue.
But maybe 10.
The average person doesn't know that a black man invented a cell phone either.
I did not know that.
Well,
Do you know the story behind that?
I forgot the black guy's name.
I forgot his name, but he had the.
He worked for Motorola.
Really?
And, yeah. So he figured out how the wireless technology worked. He figured out how to throw the radio signals wirelessly from a phone to a receiver and back to the phone.
Okay.
To
like the send and receive packets.
Yes, to transmit voice. Yeah, he was an engineer for Motorola. I forgot the guy's name, but he figured that out.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So was Motorola the first cell phone inventors?
Motorola owns the patents for the wireless technology. Oh. So that
No, I'm sorry. He wasn't. This is not who I'm thinking of. This is a white guy. I'm thinking of this. I thought, was it maybe the mobile phone?
the if you look up the black guy who worked for Motorola, he was an engineer. He worked at Motorola.
He might have invented the the concept, maybe like the technology, but maybe not the first actual phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Those are two different things.
Yeah, he didn't invent the phone. He invented the technology.
Right.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But this I do know for a fact. A black woman invented caller ID. That is true.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Yes.
that.
That's interesting.
Very interesting, because I always wanted to know who was calling. She finally helped us out.
But see, Motorola's a huge player. Like,
Right.
even though you don't see them anymore, like
Yeah.
they're a huge player on the
Those
radio
razors.
side. That's right.
Those Motorola razors.
The Motorola Razr was the number one selling phone on the planet Earth.
They tried to bring it back.
It still holds the number one title. They sold more phones than any other carrier.
Even through Apple iPhone.
Oh yeah, they got them beat.
What?
Crazy.
They got them beat. Look it up. The
Well, I
Motorola
mean, like,
Razr.
so you have, how many iPhones do you have?
Me?
Yeah.
At my house, or that I just use? Or?
That you personally use.
I personally just use one.
All right. So back
But I
then,
have
people
all
probably
Apple
had like
products.
five
Yeah.
razors.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Those were
People had
throwaways.
more- yeah.
Then they had they had the gold edition, they had the red edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had all the special
Which they
edition.
probably still use those as like those like the kiosk phones where you just like, I just need to make a phone call like right now.
Yeah.
You could probably still do that. And
Yeah.
like in those movies where like secret agents are like, I need this phone, then they like
Yes.
use it, then they just throw it. Like,
Yeah.
it's probably a razor phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're just getting sales off of that right there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I actually used to work for a company dealing with like the cell phone towers. I didn't actually put the satellites on top of the cell phone towers. I actually just did like what's it called, telephone poles.
Okay.
So Nokia made most of that stuff, and I was like, when I was like opening up the boxes, getting our equipment out to work, I was like, Nokia. They're like, yeah, Nokia makes all this stuff, and I was like, no.
Yep.
So I bought a bunch of stocks in Nokia,
Yep.
but they've been really up and down. Like right now, I'm actually in a negative for Nokia, but it's not by much. It's by, I think, like $20, and I think I have like 30 shares. But yeah, they're one of those things that they could drastically take off. That's why I bought some stocks in them. But they're like one of those big time players in the future of 5G that we're trying to take off with. But who knows? Like,
Well, Nokia is huge on the other side of the planet. So they're huge in China. You know
their origin? Like what country? Because Nokia is not an American name.
No, it's not. I can't remember. I used to know. I don't know if it's like Scandinavian or
I have no idea.
somebody, but I can't remember. Don't hold me to that. But yeah, but Nokia is a big player. They're a big player. They kind of fell off the phone market. Like if you Google Nokia right now, they sell a lot of phones.
Those brick phones were crazy.
Yeah, in China and stuff like
Yeah.
that, other markets, because the markets here are regulated heavily.
Yeah.
So, the FCC controls what goes across the waves. And then the big cell phone players here, the big four, which is Sprint, Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T, they pay hundreds of millions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars. Not trillions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, to keep everybody else locked out.
Yeah.
So that's why the cell phone market here is so heavily regulated.
Yeah.
Because they control who can enter the U.S. market. So
That's why they got those handcuffs on Huawei. Huawei's got that
Man.
phenomenal technology, and then America's like, no.
yeah, they don't want it.
You're a bunch of spies.
Well, so that's why you can buy Android phones like the Android Plus One or the I forgot the name of the other Android phone, but anyway. In China or the markets, like European markets, if you buy an Android-based phone, it's unlocked.
Yeah.
Over here, it's locked down to the carrier, right? And then, of course, the carrier installs all that bloatware on it, so they control it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So therefore, Verizon or Sprint, if they, or for instance, Samsung is the number one maker of Android phones, right?
Yeah.
But then Samsung installs their software on it, but then they sell the devices to the carriers, and then the carriers say, oh, put this software, put this on it. So it's locked down to that. But if you just get just a straight raw Google experience, it's so much different than a lockdown phone.
Yeah.
It's a lot more more powerful in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I love what Apple's doing. So right now, I'm waiting for WWDC for when they release their new technology, but because I'm going to get a new iMac.
Okay.
What is it called? The T2 chips that they have in their phones. They're thinking about Apple's actually considering putting their chips in their computers, so they're going to get away from Intel, and everybody's like, whoa. Wait a minute. So I think that's going to be really interesting. Do you have a take on that?
Well, so of course with the advent of 5G and everything, like you just said, the chipsets, they want to take away, they being Apple. Apple pays a tremendous amount of money to Intel to license those chips that they put inside of those devices, right? So Motorola is the number one chip maker. Well, I know they used to be on the planet. They make a lot of chips for Samsung. They make chips for Apple devices, blah, blah, blah. So Intel is the firepower behind some of those chips. Motorola may make the actual chip, but the Intel part is the actual mathematical computation. They have all of how the chips are wafered and how how they're actually physically put together. A lot of that runs on Intel, right? So Apple wants to get away and start putting those other chips in other devices so you can have cellular technology inside of like an iMac. So you can get away from, they want to get away from being chained by Intel. So with 5G requires a different type of chip because it's that millimeter wave technology. So it's not the standard chip that's inside of a regular cell phone. So that, because the millimeter waves are really, really short waves. So you have to have those specialized chips that can actually take those waves and process the information.
Is that what, like, all the chips that are like 14 or 7 nanometers, is that what they're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you need those chips they're really small, but it's the way that they're designed to pick up the frequencies. So like your phone has several chips in it, right? So it has a Bluetooth chip in it because it has a Wi-Fi chip in it. It has a processing chip in it that runs all the other chips on the board. And then it has the chip in it that can see the radio waves from the cellular tower.
Okay.
So then when you add another chip in it, which is the millimeter wave, which is 5G, it's its own chip. So, of course, when you're running that technology inside of a phone, it's only so much real estate you have.
Yeah.
The chips have to be separated from so far because they give off heat. So the heat part of the phone, you have to, some engineer has to figure out how to put all those chips on the board and run them at high speeds without overheating the device.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of technology goes in that.
So is that why some Samsung phones were exploding? Because they were just poorly engineered and
Oh, man.
What?
I think that's a
No.
That's a legitimate question.
That's the actual truth.
Yeah. It's like a yeah and no.
Yeah. It's a yes and no.
I'm jumping in the one part that I might know something that's going on in this conversation.
When Samsung
why
put
they
the Note
exploded.
9 out, which I was really, really geeked about. I was gonna pull the trigger and get a Note 9.
Look at God. He protected you. Well, you had got on an airplane.
Well,
Blow.
yeah, those things. So what happened with that? And you're right. The firmware is the BIOS of any computer device, right? So the BIOS just tells the chips how to talk to each other. It says, you do this, you do that, you do that, you do that, you turn on, you do this. So the firmware inside of those Samsung phones was not operating in the most efficient manner. So it was causing the fans inside of the phones to try to constantly cool them down because the chips were overheating.
Okay.
And that's what was causing the chips to explode.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why Samsung immediately had to clean that up. I mean, that was a very expensive mistake because they had to recall all those phones. They had to take them. They had to melt them down and start over, basically.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it hurt them. But then, of course, they bounced back with the Note 10. And, now they have the Samsung S20 out, the S10. I mean, Samsung is the premier Android device.
I would say so.
And they make a lot of technology for Apple phones.
Yeah.
So
that's what a lot of, I guess, Apple users don't know is like a lot of the stuff is actually Samsung stuff
right.
inside of it.
that's right.
Yeah.
You might as well just get your Android.
I actually think so. I love Samsung. I had Samsung phone for a while, but the reason why I got an Apple phone was because of the it's like better for business. Like when you're sending and receiving files from somebody, Apple doesn't compress everything. So like if you ever sent a video to somebody who has a Samsung phone?
He sent me videos and he like shows up like this big on my screen.
What happens is like the Samsung phones compress the file, and so it makes it look all crappy. But in Apple, there's like, yeah, we'll just send in the original file.
Right.
So they basically send a better version of that file, well, the best version of the file, but it's usually like a bigger file size. And that's the issue but Apple's like, just pay us more money. We'll give you more memory and you can have better stuff.
Yeah, and then part of the problem too, when you're transmitting large files across wireless networks, I mean, you run into network congestion, right?
Yeah.
So of course,
A lot of traffic.
Yeah. So there are very, very fine print legal agreements from the cellular carriers when they make these devices. They say, hey, look, your devices cannot transmit only so much data across our network because it causes network congestion. So like when you're out, let's just say you're just riding around a city somewhere, or you're in another city, you're traveling, and you notice how your phone is slow. The network is slow. You're looking at Facebook and it's loading slowly. It's congestion. So that comes from people sending large files across the network.
Yeah.
There are millions of bytes of data transmitting across that network at any given time.
Yeah.
Somebody's streaming, somebody's watching Netflix, somebody's watching YouTube, somebody's texting, somebody's uploading pictures, downloading. It's a lot going on. So that's why you get that.
Do you run into that at hospitals? Like you're trying to use your phone or something and you're unable to use it because it's just like, I mean, obviously now people who didn't know it's because it's busy in the area.
It depends on the hospital, but yes, it has happened, and I just have had poor signal in some hospitals as well. Memphis, VA, that does not have Wi-Fi for people to use, but it's basically a dead zone in there. But there's been certain cell phone companies to actually, and you would be able to explain this probably a little bit better, like put hubs in certain hospitals.
Yeah.
So I had Sprint for a very long time, and I had a hard time at Methodist with my Sprint phone, but somebody told me that AT&T and Verizon was typically better in that hospital, and they said, I guess they put some sort of a hub or something like that so that it would boost the signal or what have you, basically improve the cell phone function in there.
Yeah.
It's called a femtocell. And what it is that whoever hospital, they call the carrier and they say, hey, look, we have X amount of AT&T users or X amount of Verizon users here or whatever. We want to boost the coverage. So what they do is they send a site survey analysis. They come out and do a site survey analysis. So they send a wireless analyst out to your site. They look at how many floors of the hospital. They look at the texture of the building, if it's brick, if it's metal, the floors, how many devices, metal you have inside. And they do what's called a wireless site survey. They look at how much interference you have, how many wireless access points you have. It's a whole big technical process in it. But once they do that, then they come out and they install these little femtocells, which is, in layman terms, it's really a repeater. It's a wireless repeater that plugs into your current Wi-Fi network or your circuit on site, and it broadcasts specifically that signal to those devices. So only those devices can pick up that signal. And what it does is it takes the signal and runs it across the wireless network or the internet traffic in your building.
I don't know how to describe it.
I asked that because of like even at my work, like we have these at Owens Corning through the whole line, like we make shingles. That's what we make, shingles to go on your roof. So at the very end of the line, what we have is like bundles that they're already wrapped in. These robots will like basically they pick up the bundles and then they just drop them down onto a pallet. Well, sometimes they don't work. Like something's wrong. And I have to call this company called Premier Tech. And so sometimes like I don't get good cell phone signal throughout the plant. And so like it's literally disrupting my job because I need cell phone service. And I figure in a hospital it'd be pretty trash because of like, how big the building is. Like what he was talking about, the material the hospital is made out of. So that, like you were saying, the pandemic had to push some companies forward.
Right.
So I figured hospitals should be one of those companies because usually, a hospital has been around for a long time. It's one of the oldest things as far as like things that we use is taking care of people.
Right.
So I figured, that would be something that they would address. Have you seen it?
The only thing that I really know of is that they've just enhanced, like I said, the hubs, and we have Wi-Fi and.
Is the Wi-Fi locked to just the employees? Like you have an account to log in? So
I believe that we have, at least in the Baptist system, we have a public-facing one, maybe. And then I know we have a private physician or employee-only one.
Oh, okay.
So whenever, because I logged in once, like whenever I, bring in my personal computer, I'm boom on the Baptist private MD internet. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I figured it's something that's just. I don't know. That's really crucial because if you need to gain access to something at a very crucial time, period, then that's something that you need.
But we also have, of course, desktops and things like that. And then in the ER, depending on the shift you're working at Baptist DeSoto, the doc might be holding an iPhone, so we can receive EKGs from like an ambulance in the field if somebody may be having a heart attack. We text privately with some of our doctors, as well. So there's technology that's incorporated. I guess I just think of it so synchronously, it just flows that I don't, I wouldn't even stop to even think about it. So
that's good. That's good. I mean, as time goes on, we need to definitely consider that in our equations of funding hospitals and funding, even the police, like when we're talking about that.
Right.
Every sector of America has to be like, hey, technology is getting better,
right?
And we're going to get, whatever company you are, is going to get left behind if you don't progress. Like, have you seen, like all these companies getting like the card readers and chip readers? By the way, Kroger has the fastest chip reader I have ever seen.
Really?
Yeah. Have you ever been in Kroger?
Oh yeah.
Anytime I put my credit card into the Kroger chip reader, it's like probably 3 seconds. No joke. It's probably the fastest chip reader. That and Costco's is pretty fast because like Costco, you can just tap it on top and it automatically reads.
I feel like whenever I'm at Kroger, I've got to like hold my card a certain way because there's like a chip malfunction or something like that. It's never really but I always go through the self-service lane. So.
Okay, well that's the one I use, and it reads super fast. I love the
I'm
Kroger
probably going to the wrong Kroger. So.
well, I mean, like I said, once again, that's a technology play, right? So it's all in how the grocery stores are physically wired. You know what I mean? Your POS system, the back end that you have. If you run in fiber, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because fiber moves data at the speed of light, right? So if you're using an old Ethernet cord that's a Cat 5 or, you got Cat 3 or something, you know what I'm saying? And that's really slow. But if you bounce your network up, you beef it up to Cat 6 or fiber or something like that, then of course it moves data very quickly. So by the time you stick your card in, then it's already on the back end with your merchant services. They're computing all these numbers. They're analyzing his card. The PIN number matches. Boom, authorize it. Check out. Let's go.
Yeah,
let's keep it. Yeah,
that makes people want to actually go to your place because you're like, oh, this place is nice.
Don't make it hard for me to spend my money.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Just let me give you my money.
I saw something old. It's like an old YouTube video, and it was really cool. So it was basically like people would sit down at a restaurant. They were in a restaurant. They sit down at the table, and their table was like, it was just like this, but it was like an iPad. Like the whole table was like an iPad.
Like a giant iPad?
Yeah. And then you could like tap on something and their menu of the restaurant popped up. And you could like order your food from your table, and then like somebody would just come out and bring you your food.
That's how it is at Dallas's airport.
Really?
But they have like physical iPads there. And so you might be rushing, have a quick layover, but want to get something to eat real quick. So you just go on their menu, order, wait for like 10 minutes, and then somebody just brings you your order. You pay there, all those other things. So that's why I love Dallas's airport. But that's but see, that goes back to, are we losing our see, let's go back to that. The feeling like having a nice server and giving a tip. It's hard to give you a tip if all you're doing is just drop off the food.
Well, I think that's another thing that companies, that restaurants can think about. Like we were talking about earlier, getting rid of that payroll. Like even if somebody's just working off of tips, like they're still working for that company. So like liability wise, that gets rid of another person that company's liable for. So from a company standpoint, like, I hate to say it, but sometimes companies try to be more heartless. You know what I mean? Like, they try to get rid of human factors that might disrupt their company. And then other times, some companies like Chick-fil-A. Everybody knows Chick-fil-A values that customer service. Like, they're always trying to be speedy and trying to,
extremely polite.
Figure out how your day went and stuff like that, where you're headed to and stuff like that. So it's all about those human factors.
But see, like with Chick-fil-A, a lot of people don't know. Well, they may know this, they may not know this. Chick-fil-A is the #1 most profitable fast food chain in America, and they do it in 6 days. So they make more revenue. Their profitability, more revenue in less time. Right. So, of course, McDonald's is, they trying to catch up. McDonald's is probably the most ubiquitous. McDonald's is the #1 they hold more real estate on the planet than anyone.
That's crazy.
They're right behind the Catholic Church, right? So the Catholic Church is #1.
Facts.
That's facts.
Facts.
That's wild.
Catholic Church is #1. McDonald's is #2. McDonald's has the most valuable prized real estate in all of the whole planet.
They own every piece of land that they're on.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So back to the food scenario, Chick-fil-A knows when they build a restaurant, they know their customer demographic. And I know this really well because I tried to open a Chick-fil-A years ago. Chick-fil-A would let you buy in for $5,000. So if you could be a franchisee for $5,000. But
that's cheap.
Yeah, but the caveat to that is that they do a thorough screening on you. They own it. You never own it. You're just the manager, the general manager that runs it.
Yeah.
Well, now they boost it to like $10,000 now, but still the policy is still the same. Chick-fil-A controls where it sits, who comes there, what contractors you use, when you build it, what land it's on, whole 9 yards, right? So they know their customer base. They will not build a Chick-fil-A in an area unless the median income for that area is $50,000 or higher. So they know at this group of people work in this place in this time. They know this level of professionals stay here. They want to go to work at this time. So they have this many people that work in the restaurant. The number one cost in any fast food organization is payroll is #1. Food cost is #2. You have to understand your food costs. So I know you may want it fast, and I heard you say something about like POS systems and stuff like that. You don't want to lose the human touch, but the POS system is the brain of any fast food or any restaurant, period. It tells you how many customers you had, how many tickets you did per hour, average ticket sale, what are you selling the most of, what time of day you're selling this stuff. So I know we sell X amount, we sell 50 cups of coffee between 5 a.m. and 5:45 a.m. We sell 20 cups of coffee between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you know how to gauge how much manpower you need, all that kind of stuff. I understand that because I have ambitions to build a coffee. Open a coffee shop. I have my own coffee brand.
I was about to say, do you have a coffee business?
Yeah. So I'm one half of a partner business, Memphis Grindhouse Coffee. My partner Rick Askew, we have a coffee business that we sell online. Okay. And we sell ground coffee, and we also have whole bean as well. But we sell our coffee online, www.memphisgrindhouse.com, and we sell all over the country. We have people that we ship coffee to. And we actually have aspirations of wanting to open a coffee shop.
Okay, but a physical shop people can go in.
Yes, an actual and we will open an actual physical shop. But when we talk to banks, the number one thing that they require when you have the business plan is, especially if you have not ran a food business, you have to understand the numbers, and you have to understand the numbers really, really well. And a lot of restaurants, that's the plight. They don't understand the number. That's why so many of them fail within the first 3 years or 5 years, because they don't understand the numbers. So, instead of having a staff of 20, can we do the same thing with a staff of 12 or 8? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple of business owners that own restaurants since the pandemic. Their revenues have increased 40% because of the pandemic. And they're selling more food with less people. They shortened their menu, and they introduced a POS system that will allow people to order online. So
that's crazy.
You know what I mean? So you took your menu, you digitized it, and you made it to where people can go to www.whatever your website is.com. They can order your food. It picks up. Then you got Uber Eats out here. You know, Uber Eats will take your menu. They'll put it online. They'll let customers, you know, buy your product, pay for it. Somebody comes and pick it up. So technology has advanced the way these businesses are doing business. And they've noticed that they have made increased revenue by being closed, because now by you being closed, you don't need your dining room anymore.
Yeah.
You can shrink your footprint and still be profitable. So a lot of restaurants, they won't go back to the same format that they had pre the pandemic. They won't do that.
And me personally, like, so me and Rachel, we love to cook, and we don't go out a ton. Like we usually go out to eat once or twice on the weekends, and we always try to go to a mom and pop type place. Like, we've tried a ton of restaurants around here, and most of them aren't even like the big chains. Like, I mean, we've had Gus's Fried Chicken. Like, we had that once, and as I said, we haven't even had Central. I don't even know if that's chained out or not. Is it?
It's a small chain. It's just
small chain.
It's a local
Okay.
chain.
Yeah,
Okay, local.
Yeah, local chain.
And
like
then-
a Babalu is kind of like a regional chain as well.
So yeah, we try to go to like the places that are like smaller, and then we just love supporting like a personally owned type place.
Right.
And dang, I forgot where I was going with that. Shoot, I forgot where I was going with that.
Sorry, man. Keep supporting local. Support
Yes.
local.
Yeah, we do value that, because I just feel like it's better to just go to that type of place and experience whatever kind of culture that they're trying to drive over. You know, you know what you're going to get from McDonald's. You know what you're going to get from Burger King. Like, you can look that up.
Right.
Right.
Like, you can't look up the experience you're going to get from Elwood Shack or something like that. So I love going to those type of places.
Right. I went to another place. I went to 2 locally owned, and both of these actually were black-owned businesses I went to yesterday just to support them, right?
Nice.
I went to this place called East Memphis Pizza and Subs, right there on Mendenhall. It's across from the Winchester Bowling Alley. If you, I don't know if
I haven't been over there.
Yeah, but good food, right? So the owner, he's a really cool guy. His name is Aaron. Aaron was out there barbecuing, and he did a little Facebook video, and I saw it.
Aaron or is it Aaron?
Aaron.
It's Aaron, so it's Aaron.
Okay.
Aaron. So
your southern twang.
Yeah.
You know, Aaron said, you know,
Aaron.
Aaron.
So yeah, Aaron was out there cooking, and he did this little video. He was like, "Hey, y'all come out and visit us today. We got this going on." So he was barbecuing turkey legs, chicken, ribs. He had some beans and slaw and this and that. So I was like, man, you know what? So I hit up a couple people, and I was like, hey man, won't y'all go by and support the guy today? And we went by there. I went by there yesterday. Got me a little rib plate and some slaw and beans. And then later on in the evening for dinner, I went to this place called Wing Guru. Wing Guru is another black-owned restaurant.
Yeah, I've heard Wing Guru. I'm following them on Instagram.
Wing Guru is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I heard it's popping.
Yeah, I'm not even a chicken guy like that, but Wing Guru is good. Good food, good people, good service. Your food is made to order.
Yeah.
So, you can expect a little small hole on that. But I mean, I'd rather have it fresh than have it sitting under a heat lamp somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's good food. And like I say, just to support people and, show that whole solidarity, unification that we're doing as a people, as a society. I love it.
I mean, that even goes back to what you're talking about, just that emotional connection you get with a business when you're actually buying something from somebody that's not a big corporate business.
Right.
Like, if you go to Burger King, you might not remember the experience you had there. You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
But if you go to somewhere that's like local like that, then you're going to remember it, and you're probably going to want to go back just because of, the food you had. The I love when like the owner like comes around like, hey, how was your food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they like actually have a good conversation with you. Sometimes some people like might sound like they're just doing it because just because, but then some people seem like they genuinely want to have a good conversation with you.
So speaking of, I'm not sure if you heard the word on the street about 2 Memphis restaurants, Flight and Southern Social. Have you been to either one of those places?
I've been to Flight.
Okay. Southern Social. Don't do this.
What's up?
Don't do this.
Go ahead.
So they're in the light of the current racial tensions, I'll say, that we're having in our country, and highlighting racist behaviors from corporations. Flight and Southern Social have been accused of doing prejudiced or racist tactics. So if you've been a Flight.
Yeah.
So Flight has been accused of forcing their staff to place people of color upstairs and not downstairs by where the windows are.
Really?
So that they're not being seen.
Wow.
Southern Social was also accused of like placing people of color in the back and not towards the front. But when you said, the owner or the management coming around speaking, hey, how are you? How was your meal? Is this your first time here? I have personally only had amazing customer service at Southern Social, and I've been there with you most of the times I've been. So we've always had great food and great service, but I've never personally felt like that has happened to me.
Are they on par with Flight as far as like the food and the price, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's as expensive as Flight.
No, it's about the same.
But
really?
it's like that that standard.
Yeah,
It's the
that
same
standard.
I don't know anything about Southern Social.
Southern Social, so it's out here in Germantown. It's kind of tucked away a little bit, but they have amazing food, great ambiance. I don't know. I guess I would say like maybe a classy Southern style restaurant.
Okay.
So maybe you'll get, shrimp and grits, but maybe it's with like maybe truffle on there or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying that's on their menu, but something like that.
I get what you mean. Yeah.
But it's still down home in a way. Like
Okay.
everybody's real friendly. Their drinks are real good. They've got a nice patio, and I love a patio. So, I mean, every time I've been, there's been a pretty diverse crowd. I'll say that as well. It's black and white. But that's the word on the streets in the Memphis streets is that we're calling out Southern Social and Flight. I mean, I haven't, even though I live super close to Flight, I haven't been there in a while. But do you have any thoughts since you covered your head?
Yeah, you seem pretty distraught.
Yeah, you seem real distraught. I was
happened?
I was just saying that this is what's going on.
No, I mean, no, seriously. So, to what she said, I mean, yes, there have been some allegations or accusations on that behalf. A colleague of mine who actually frequents Coastal restaurant out there at Shelby Farms.
That's one too.
The same family, they own that management group. They own Coastal, they own Southern Social, Flight, and Porch and Parlor.
Okay.
In Midtown. And we were just kind of messaging yesterday back and forth, and she told me that she's never had an issue when she goes to those restaurants like Coastal. She was taking her husband for Father's Day, but she said due to the allegations that she's canceled her reservations because So people are actually responding to this to these allegations. It was on the news last night. So Flight has actually issued a public statement to say that they are actually investigating the allegations. So it's a serious thing.
Yeah,
it's a serious
but
thing.
it's like employees and former employees that are like reiterating that these things are true. Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
crazy.
Yeah, it's rough. It's interesting right now.
Sometimes I feel like I don't get. It's gonna sound weird to say, but like the full black experience, because when I'm with my wife, she's white, so like I would never be able to experience that going to the restaurant because I've got a white woman with me. So they might not treat me as, that same situation if I was with a black girl because it might,
Or just by yourself.
Yeah, or just by myself. So it's sometimes I'm like, they might be treating me differently because I'm with Rachel than if I was with somebody else who was of color.
Right.
So, I don't know.
That's fascinating. I never thought about that because obviously I'm with somebody who's a black male. I'm a black female. I never thought about that.
Have you seen what's his name? Dr. Umar? I think that's his name. Have you seen him?
Yeah.
People. I saw some video where he was saying.
Ain't no school, family. Ain't no school. And I'm done. Ain't no school.
He said something like they were talking about going somewhere. I don't know if it's like a protest or something. Yeah. And he kept saying, you can't bring your white wife to wherever we're talking. He's like, you can't bring your white wife. And I was like, what is this dude talking about?
Right.
But I guess they were just talking about, only black people, only Africans.
I guess,
something.
And you have to understand Dr. Umar's theology, right? Or his theory. So he is a Pan-Africanist So, he follows, the Marcus Garvey movement, how Pan-Africanism, if you go into the whole research on that, so he believes, just in his theory, he believed that the black man should be married to a black woman. That's his thought process behind that. So he makes the argument that it's hard for a black man socially to be able to do things or have social, to be able to do things socially for his own race when he's married to a Caucasian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, for instance, Byron Allen. I don't know if you know who Byron Allen is.
Don't.
But Byron Allen is he's a well-known, he's multimillionaire. He's a media mogul. He owns several different radio, TV stations, like TV, not TV One, but like .TV, like comedy.tv, sports.tv. He owns the Weather Channel.
Nice.
Yeah. So, Byron Allen is a black man, but he's married to a white woman, but he sued Comcast on behalf of racial, he said that allegations that he made towards Comcast, saying that Comcast would not allow black programming on their networks. So he sued them in federal court. So like I said, that's Dr. Umar's that's his basis, right? Like, just because of his beliefs, he believes that, if you're gonna be a black man, you should be committed that way to the black woman.
How do y'all feel about that kind of thinking? Because I feel two things. One, I feel that's the definition of being a black racist, and then number two, I also feel that's kind of living backwards. Like, you're not trying to progress for the future. I mean, we call, I guess, just white people racist because they don't want to associate with black people with, like, dating, like allowing, like, a white guy doesn't tells his daughter she can't date a black guy, or vice versa if it's their son or whatever. So to me that's kind of racist, because you're saying you don't want another race in your family. But what he's saying, I feel like that's racist. Like, you're saying I don't want black men shouldn't be with a white woman. I feel like that's the same thing. And then also, I feel like that kind of thinking is just with the African movement and, like, the way he talks about that stuff. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like it's very, like, I'm all for culture and, like, looking into your roots and everything, but at the same time, like, interracial couples are going up, like, drastically. And then also, I think the world in general is just, we're socializing more. The reason why there were so many white countries and so many black countries, so many Hispanic countries, Asians, is because people didn't move as much. Transportation wasn't as easily accessible, but now it is. So that's how people can date outside the race. So, I mean, how do y'all feel about those two things?
Well, I mean, just me personally, I think it's all based on how you're socialized, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so if you grow up in an area or within an area of society to where it's the norm, then I think that's more so what you gravitate to. It's all about it's all about exposure as well. I mean, so when you're 5 years old, if you go to a multicultural school where you're with West Indians or East Indians, or you're with Africans or Caucasians or Samoans or whatever.
Yeah.
So then as a child, children are completely innocent. So they don't see color. Like, they just see a person. Like, this is my friend, or this is
unless they've been taught that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a guy. I'm a male, black man. I grew up in the South. So of course, in the South, because of the racial history that we have in America, the inception with the lynching and the Emmett Till incident, to where he was completely murdered, and because of the allegation of him whistling at a white woman, two white guys, he was like 13, 14 years old. They beat him, killed him, and threw him over in a river.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the Emmett Till incident was the catalyst that ignited the civil rights movement in the 60s. So with all of the social and racial stigmas that go along with black men being with white women in the South, it's not as common. A lot of people socially frown on it. They used to be that way, but things are shifting and changing now. I mean, but then of course I have an uncle. My uncle who looks like me. He's actually darker than me. You know what I mean? His wife is lily white. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And she's a very nice lady. Zero problems with her. You know, when I see her, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. I speak to her. We have a conversation. It is what it is. But like I said, but he lives in Chicago. So it's more socially acceptable where he lives versus in the South. Because my uncle told me himself, when him and his wife go to dinner, when they're down here, they get a lot of kind of weird looks.
Different.
Yeah, they get weird looks like, man, look at that couple over there, you know. And of course, things have changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like I said, I think it's just how you socialized.
How do you feel about the Wisconsin area?
Ooh, I have a lot of feelings. One, I want to backtrack to one thing you said. You said something about black racism. Black people cannot be racist, period. We are not in the power we don't hold enough power, institutionalized power, to oppress another race.
Okay.
So I would say
is that your definition of
yes,
racism?
Because racism is not just, I don't like you because of the color of your skin. Yeah. It's also the institutional and systematic things that have been put into place to oppress people of color.
Okay.
I will say, like I said, I don't think black people can be racist because we do not wield enough power to actually oppress another class. We cannot oppress white people. White people can oppress us, but we cannot oppress them. So it can be prejudiced. I will say that we can prejudge people just because of the color of their skin, but we cannot hold. We just, I don't think that's a proper way to say that. You know, you can't be racist. I'm just going to say you can't be racist. As far as black men, or I'll say Pan-Africanism, Umar Johnson exhausts me a little bit because I think he just makes me just a little bit tired. One, because I think in essence what he's saying holds a lot of weight, and I'll go back to myself personally. I went to Fisk University. I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in a predominantly black neighborhood. 53206 is one of the highest crime areas in Milwaukee. If you I don't know if you knew that when you were there, but I was born and raised there. But I was bused out to suburban schools. So very often when I was in the classroom, I was one of the only or one of two people of color. So when I went through school and it was time for me to go to college, my mom encouraged me to go to an HBCU. And I also was exposed to HBCUs for that reason, because I felt like it was time for me to learn about my culture. I appreciate Dr. Umar Johnson because I don't think Africanism is just an elective that you can take. This is something that is a history of ours that we don't, as a people, don't even know. We don't realize all of the things that we've invented and done and built across the world, let alone, in our own country. So I like in general what he has to say. Back to your original point about, no white women are allowed at the protests. No, in order to dismantle racism, we need white people to take down the system. This is the system they built. They have the power to go inside of that system and tear it down with this. We can continue to say this is unjust, unfair. We need not just black people. We need everybody to say that this is effed up and we need to change this.
Yeah.
As far as interracial dating, I mean, I think it is part of how you were socialized. I also think it's a status symbol to some people. So I'll say, we've had this conversation in private, but I'll have it in public. I think that because our society has put white women on a pedestal, as some black men or some men of color achieve the heights that we have been trying to achieve, i.e. getting into the boardrooms of your Fortune 500 companies and becoming these CEOs and VPs and becoming basketball players in NFLs and becoming stars and holding wealth, they feel like their world is opened up to them and they see all of these off limits or exotic women that they've never had access to before, all of a sudden being attracted to them, and they take it as an opportunity. But I also think that it's also a social climb up. Meaning, I think in the world, just to keep it straight, just to keep it black and white, that it's definitely the white man, the white woman, the black man, the black woman. And if you can level up by getting the white woman as a prize, then that socially and culturally gives you some other advantages, like you said. And for example, man, I don't know if I've ever experienced that because I know I have this white wife.
Yeah.
So maybe things are different because of her, but you realize that could be a factor.
Yeah.
And I think it is. I think it plays a lot into things. So it's we've had so many discussions about this. It's hard to kind of succinctly say these things, but it's just it's so multifactorial as everything is. But I appreciate Dr. Umar Johnson. I appreciate that he's trying to create an institution that pushes blackness, and it's not just what Black Americans have done. What about Nigerians? What about the culture in South Africa? What about the culture, the slave trade that happened in India, which I didn't even know about until I went to South Africa and went to a museum and realized that there was a slave trade the opposite way into India as well, coming from the tip of Africa. So our story has not been told. We know all about European culture. We know all about Asian culture. We know all about American culture. We know pretty much about Hispanic culture too, but Black culture has not been fully explored, and Black history has not been fully told.
Yeah.
And so I respect that that's what he's trying to do and try to instill that pride in people, because we don't really truly know as a people where we've come from, because for hundreds of years, our history has been stripped from us. We were told that we were ugly, that we were dumb, that we were stupid, that we couldn't do anything. But that's not true. That's not where we actually came from. We came from greatness. We came from literally kings and queens. We came from wealth, and our land was stripped away from us. So
I think it's really interesting the thought process of like how history really is as far as like Black people, because I mean we have, so was it 1885 or 86 the slavery was abolished?
1864, 65,
something like that.
Yeah,
But
1865,
anyways,
I think.
so
1865, I think.
1800s.
Yeah.
So from then, I would say truly is when Black, I guess, history actually got its propulsion, because we went from not being a slave, from being a slave to not being a slave. So then we could get some true identity. Like that's when we could actually start being a person. You know what I mean? Like we weren't really people back then because they didn't.
We were property.
Yeah, we were property.
We were property.
So
we were 3/5 of a person.
Correct. So I think technically that's when like real Black history could have begun. It's about that 1800s, and from then until we had like the jazz movement and then blues and all that kind of stuff. That the music really shaped our culture. It's like people understood that now with like hip hop music and rap music, like that's literally shaping white like teenagers' lives is Black music. Like if you get on TikTok and you see a white kid dancing, it's probably to a Black person's music.
It's not to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So it's
Right.
that I think that should be acknowledged. It's almost like Black history is still writing itself. It's like we haven't even passed the history part. It's like we're still in the history mode. It's almost like we started writing a story and people want to close the book and say I'm done, but it's like no, we aren't done yet. Like we're still writing.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Blacks in America, our experience in life or in history is probably one of the most unique than any other race of people on the planet. Primarily because we were brought here in the 15 and 1600s, stripped away from our ancestors, from our history completely, and we were taught you have no history, you have no name. This is your name. You do this. So of course, when you cut a people off at the neck, You know what I mean? Of like, you have no history, this and that. This is who you are. So when slavery was abolished in 1865, which is why we celebrate Juneteenth, you have people who have for a couple hundred years was working on slave plantations. We built the wealth in this country. America's wealth came from two industries, tobacco and cotton. So when you have those two industries that were built off the backs of free labor, America, black people were the free labor class in America.
Correct.
So in 1865, when we were emancipated from slavery, it's like, what do we do? Because white people didn't give us anything. They didn't give us a severance package.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're not on the plantation anymore.
No, we never got our 40 acres and a mule.
So we never got that. So we had to figure out, how do we go moving forward? But then, of course, the way the laws are written, especially with Jim Crow, black people couldn't own property. Black people couldn't do this. You couldn't go vote. You couldn't own this. You couldn't do this. So we always had to try to grassroot everything. So with people like you said, with the whole singing, the way we communicated on plantations was with a song.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was embedded in our
culture.
soul.
It's in our DNA.
It's in our DNA that you sing as a way of communication, or, you dance or whatever. It's a non-verbal way of communication, because it was how you told the other slaves, master's coming, or,
Right.
or they finna do this or whatever, right? So, fast forward to now, how we have, like you just said, music, hip hop music permeates every other culture on the planet.
Yeah.
It's used in commercials. It's sung at theaters, at stadiums. It's on TV. It's on radio. It's used to sell cars. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but once again, black people don't own the infrastructure behind that. We don't own the record labels. We don't own the rights to the music. I mean, look at how a lot of our artists got screwed out with their masters.
Their masters, yeah.
You know what I mean? Back in
Publishing.
history, publishing, they were not. You were a slave again on paper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You sign these record contracts. A record label will give you $1 million advance, but you got to give them 10 albums.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I love Chris Rock. He was like, people don't understand the difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Right.
Shaq is rich. The man who signed Shaq's checks
Is
wealthy.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's that status that black people have to get to, is that wealthy status.
And I think that's part of the reason why people are rioting right now and are protesting, because we have been shut out for so long. I think it's just culminated around George Floyd and police brutality, but it's more so, I've had more conversations about tearing down the structure of white supremacy in business, which we talked about, technology, education, healthcare. I've had more conversations about healthcare disparities, things like that. So you say that our story hasn't really begun. I think we're just trying to go back to where we were. We're trying to find ourselves back home, because again, we were ruling, we were kings and queens, then we were stolen from our land, then we were, put here, and we built this country for free. And then we were emancipated, and I'm putting that in quotes because of Reconstruction and Jim Crow and redlining and healthcare disparities and things. We are still not truly free. And if we became truly free, I think we could really go back to our story and really rule the land and rule the world and show people how beautiful our culture is and how we are as a people. But we've just been systematically oppressed. And it's not just Black Africans. Anyone that has a lot of melanin in their skin, period, has experienced this. Because if you go to India, they got colorism and issues like that. If you go to other parts of the world, like Australia, the Aboriginal people are dark-skinned people. They are systematically oppressed as well in Australia. So it's just people of color, melanated, pigmented people. We just have been through a lot. So I'm looking forward to, hopefully, since everybody's paying attention now, because we have nothing else to do but to pay attention, that we actually move and make some significant change.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. I just want to see the world different. I don't want to have a baby and have to explain to my child, well, little Bobby doesn't want to play with you because you have Afro puffs and not straight hair and pigtails, and they don't understand that just because you're brown, that doesn't make you any different.
Yeah.
I hate to have to bring another human being into the world, and that's that's something that they'll have to deal with. I want to see systems change. So
absolutely. So you've got your coffee shop, right? Is there anything else that you're working on?
Well, so like I said, we haven't physically opened our coffee shop yet. We're working on putting some things together to actually get that physical brick and mortar open. But like I said, I mean, I'm an IT guy by trade. I mean, I do some consulting with a few clients that I work with. And we actually, on my way over here, I was having a conversation with a business partner of mine. We're working on some IT stuff, trying to, well, in a sense, we're putting together a small team of people, so we can call it you can look at it from like an IT SWAT team in a sense. We're going to focus on helping small to medium-sized businesses redo their IT structure.
Okay.
As far as, hey, you need more bandwidth, you need more access points. You have a healthcare system. Oh, you have a clinic. Oh, you need an EMR. We're going to get you going. You got some data over here that you got stored locally on these machines, or you have it in a server. Let's put you on Amazon Web Services. Let's get you in the cloud. Let's get you more robust. So we're actually going to work with some people, with some clients. It's some people that we're talking to that we're actually going to get a few things going on that. So,
nice. Okay. Yeah. Is there anything that you would like people to know about, or to, other than your website? What was your website again?
It's www.memphisgrindhouse.com. That's my coffee website.
Okay.
But for if anybody has any type of technical questions, or want to reach out to me, they can reach out to me at info. My email address info.embrytech EMBRYTECH.com.
Awesome.
They can email me there, and I'll respond, and we have a conversation.
Cool. And you have what? 2 books, or you have a partner? Or?
I have 3 books now.
3 books? Okay.
Yeah. So the last couple of years have been interesting for me. I wrote a book last year, and actually published 2 books, co-authored 2 books this year. One is Still MD, Two Physicians' Advice for International Medical Students and Graduates, with my friend Dr. Nina Loom. We both actually went to medical school in the Caribbean, and there's a lot of students that go to medical school in non-traditional ways, whether they go overseas or not, and that's a very unique experience that a lot of students don't get support in. So we decided to write a book together, kind of sharing our experiences and giving advice for others. So that is available on Amazon. It's available on my website, and you can go to stillmd.com to get that as well. And let me see. The Chronicles of Women in White Coats 2 is a book of just a bunch of female physicians getting together and just sharing different stories about their lives in healthcare. We talk about superwoman syndrome. We talk about imposter syndrome. We talk about our journeys to healthcare. So I wrote a couple of chapters, actually 3 chapters in the book. And when we were releasing the book, COVID-19 hit. So we all wrote some reflections about COVID-19 and how we were going through that. So if you're interested in that book, you can also purchase it on Amazon or from my website, which is www.drkimberlyb.com. What else do I have going on? I don't know. I'm kind of in a creative rut right now.
TV show?
Oh, yeah. I was last year, I was on Untold Stories of the ER. So that is season 13, episode 4. It's called Heart Stings. I was also on House Hunters last year with my brother, my crazy brother. He bought a house in San Antonio to be closer to my nephew. And I don't know the episode number, but I know the title is called Sister Does Not Know Best in San Antonio. So they'll give you a hint about how that went. I think I'm running on local TV right now and on some billboards with Baptists. We're really just trying to encourage patients that if they need emergency care, that the hospital is a safe place to be, and to please, if you're having a medical emergency, that we're here for you. So I've been on a couple of billboards and on some commercials for Baptist Hospital, just telling people it's safe to come back, and we're happy to have you and to take care of you. And that's really it. I mean, COVID kind of put the brakes on some stuff.
Yeah.
It just was kind of a hard place for me to be. I had a lot of anxiety because there was a lot of, uncertainty. So I just kind of put a pause on some stuff, but I'm sure I'll have some more things later. But that's what I have right now.
I love putting people on the spot. Y'all got some people that to come on the show. You throw some names out there, or you have to give them to me later.
I don't know. You know what? Not offhand, I don't. But I can get you some names though.
No doubt. Yeah, I love when people give me people to bring on, because then we can just.
Yeah, I got a couple of people. One of my really good friends is Rebecca Terrell, actually Freeman Terrell. She's an attorney and she works for UT. She's just a cool girl. She's actually a military brat, so raised around the military. Her dad was in the military, but she settled here in Memphis, and she works for UT now. She's just a cool person to talk to. Another one of my good friends is Santa Patton. She is from Memphis. She went to Central High School. She went to Vanderbilt and UPenn. And she works for Shelby County Schools. And she also does makeup on the side. So
cool.
She's a cool person to talk to. Stuart does not live here currently, but Stuart P. Lott is somebody else that maybe if you could do like a Zoom call or something with him, he's a very interesting person to talk to. Born and raised here in Memphis, went to Jackson State, went to Cornell for law school, and he works in the Bay Area. Actually, I think for a financial tech company.
Yeah, fintech.
But he's doing his own tech stuff on the side.
Okay.
And last person is my friend Becca's husband, which is William Terrell. He's a native Memphian, was educated here, went to law school and undergrad at Memphis, but works for FedEx.
Nice.
And lived in Dubai for a while. And he's just a cool cat. Just regular, just good old fashioned, just regular cool people. Like you can sit down and have like a deep conversation with them.
Awesome. Oh, y'all got anything else?
We've talked about everything. Only thing we didn't talk about is religion. So I think we're good.
All right, cool.
That was fun.
All right, well, thank y'all for coming. Thank for everybody tuning in, and see y'all next time. Hey, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast. And if you would, hit the subscribe button. The subscribe button allows you to, subscribe to the podcast. And if you give me a like and give me a comment, that would help out as well. Commenting allows you to have a conversation with me, and liking it allows me to know that you actually like it. And if you dislike it, hit the dislike button twice. That's a real help out for me. So, comment, like, subscribe, and let's keep it rolling.